You descend into the prairie sod dugout with deliberate care as winter's subtle hold envelops the landscape above. Your boots grate against raw soil rather than polished planks, and your arms graze walls that carry a subtle, verdant scent despite the chill. Comfort, as you understand it today, offers no guarantees of endurance here. Ease into this space unhurriedly, allowing the tale to unfold at its own pace. You climb down the ladder gradually, since the depths below demand a measured approach. The rungs chill your palms even through fabric, and the atmosphere changes sharply once your head slips beneath the surface. Silence reigns more profoundly now, muffled rather than absolute, like ears swaddled in soft layers by the surrounding grassland. The entrance seals shut with a muted thud that fades instantly, without reverberation. That's the initial insight. Acoustics transform when soil encases everything. Pause in place to let your vision adapt. Here, lantern glow doesn't rebound like it would in timbered confines. It pools softly. Shadows carry a heavier presence, as though burdened by substance. These aren't conventional barriers. They're layers of sod bricks, their faces revealing ancient roots and compacted earth, assembled by steady hands, seasons past. A key detail from pioneer records, frequently sidelined, notes how these earthen homes proliferated across the Great Plains during the mid-19th century. Timber proved rare and costly, yet sod proved abundant and resilient enough to maintain form. Your fingertips trace the texture, sensing both solidity and subtle flex. This barrier isn't inert. It retains echoes of storms, sunlight, and thriving life. Though you've come to rest, slumber eludes you for now. Evenings in such a shelter start with attunement. The gusts overhead remain invisible, merely conveyed through vibrations. A slight quiver ripples across the overhead beams, timber struts supporting layers of turf that bear the weight patiently. Flurries will accumulate soon enough, but for the moment, the covering creaks occasionally, signaling its steadfast duty. You unroll your sleeping gear right on the earthen base. No elevated frame exists unless crafted, and plenty went without. The surface is packed soil, unyielding like baked pottery, drawing heat away relentlessly. Hence, you stay clothed, ease off the footwear, but retain your leggings. Your top remains fastened. Extra foot wrappings prove essential. A lesson absorbed fast, since toes yield to frost quickest. Anecdotes from old journals describe homesteaders layering discarded newsprint beneath covers and garb overnight, not for perusal, but as a rustling shield against the bite, staining flesh with print by dawn. You settle onto the pallet, positioning your form like easing into a confined vessel. The overhead now looms nearer than when upright. Your exhalations mist momentarily before dissipating. The light dims to a flicker. The modest hearth's embers diffuse a warmth that spares the edges. You rely on those coals out of necessity. They'll watch over the hours without consuming the breathable air. Mastering that equilibrium came from trial and occasionally harsh errors. Scholars debate to this day if these burrows offered better refuge than surface shacks amid brutal freezes or simply swapped perils. Such questions don't occupy you. You attune instead. The aroma blends soil, hearth residue, and sodden fleece. Humidity persists unavoidably. It lingers in the chill hugging the ground, in the subtle sheen where your side meets the barrier. No longer does this unsettle. You've grown adept at interpreting these cues, much like mariners scanning the heavens. Rest comes in pieces. You slip away, rouse briefly, then wander off anew. With each return, a fresh detail emerges, a soft crackle from the firebox, a settling of drifts above, the even rhythm of another presence nearby, evidence that communal quarters aren't a choice. Kin huddled for survival, not sentiment, warmth shared like any provision. The young adjusted swiftly, grown folk grumbled inwardly. Eventually the breezes intensify. You sense them indirectly via a sly current skimming the base and grazing your heels. Pull the covering snugger. Water doesn't pour through here. It trickles gradually. That's the nature of it. Above stretches the vast plain, blanketed and starred with piercing clarity. Below, the firmament exists only in recollection. Apprehension lingers, quiet and contained, nesting in your core to gauge if you'll indulge it. You withhold. This haven has endured prior tempests. It cradled sleepers yesterday. It will tomorrow. Thriving amid the grasslands seldom involved grand feats. It demanded routine vigilance, precision, and profound tedium. That's the reason it succeeds. Your breaths ease into a steadier rhythm. The overhead structure quiets down temporarily. Fresh snow accumulates, lending a burden that both weighs and wraps you in protection. You're enveloped rather than entombed. Folks who endured this existence grasped that distinction without needing explanation. They never idealized the turf walls. They honored them instead. As slumber intensifies, visions thicken under the influence of shadow and confinement. When you stir, the ground doesn't respond. It soaks up the shift. That might offer the ultimate solace. The surroundings have hushed sufficiently to grant you repose. Upon stirring awake, the chill doesn't burst in dramatically. It's simply omnipresent. Ease into the shelter, much like how fine particles accumulate on ledges without fanfare or invitation. Your eyelids lift, and the scene appears unchanged, yet your frame registers the shift. The atmosphere weighs more in your chest, turning brisker with every inhalation. Descending below hasn't freed you from the season's grip. It merely alters its approach. You remain motionless briefly, tuning in once more. Such vigilance develops swiftly on the surface. Up there, frost arrives with gusts, clamor, and unrest. Here below, it bides its time. It seeps into things and lingers well past dawn's expected thaw. Even amid a fleeting daytime thaw on the grassland, the burrow retains the chill. Soil clings to chilliness tenaciously. You tug the coverlet upward, even though it's scarcely slipped. Repose in such a space is multifaceted, beyond mere layers of fabric. You nestle within the lingering glow of prior hours and the choices of dusk. If the hearth embers are tended right, the bite remains bearable. If overlooked, the frost edges nearer, steady rather than sudden, unrelenting in its advance. It's a well-documented truth among grassland pioneers that controlling warmth demanded ongoing effort, far from a one-time evening chore. The heat that escaped through the dark hours required gradual reclamation come morning. Your digits throb initially. You work them within the mittens you kept on. You recall chuckling at the notion of bedding down fully clothed upon your initial arrival across the expanses. That amusement faded swiftly. These days, the thought of exposed flesh meeting the atmosphere after sunset strikes you as odd. Propriety fades when preservation hangs in the balance. The enclosure heightens particular feelings. Chilly surfaces seem icier due to their inescapable nearness. The terrain underfoot stays ever tangible, ever intimate. It registers through quilts, attire, and even your skeleton. This explains why so many frontiers folk layered hay or withered foliage under their covers, forming an insulating pocket of trapped atmosphere. In lean times, some resorted to maize leaves or cast-off feed bags as substitutes. A quirky note in various trailblazers' accounts describes gauging a solid slumber not by ease, but by the absence of ice crystals on interior surfaces. Any such formation signaled the blaze's defeat. You reposition and catch a faint rustle. Cloth brushing cloth. It doesn't shatter the hush into motion. That quiet amplifies the chill's presence, stripping away any diversions. Yet it also elongates the hours. Darkness doesn't hurry in this place. It dawdles, affording room for renewal if you allow it. Your respiration eases once more. Your form starts to ration energy. This isn't alarm. It's adjustment. You tuck in a bit, safeguarding your vital center. They lacked the term for core temperature drop back then, but they sensed its form. They realized that immobility without sufficient fire spelled peril, and that stirring needed tempering against perspiration, which might prove fatal in the aftermath. Scholars still argue over whether those homesteaders fully grasped these threats on an intellectual level or pieced them together via harsh experimentation. You simply sense that intuition steers you presently. The heater has dimmed but retains a trace of mildness. Extending a limb toward it reveals that subtle glow. Such a minor reassurance suffices. Blazes in these dens were tempered deliberately, both to conserve resources and to prevent excessive drying that might split the earthen barriers. Life in this spot thrives on trade-offs: comfort, ventilation, security, and downtime bargain endlessly. You ponder fleetingly those in nearby wooden structures with flimsier barriers and leakier interiors. Certain diarists claimed these earth homes stayed toastier in the freeze and milder in the heat, albeit gloomier and more sodden. Others loathe them intensely. Recollection often exaggerates hardship while blurring practicality. Right now, you're thankful for the surrounding soil's embrace. Despite its subtle theft of vitality, it guards against gales, bareness, and the vast skyline that swells an evening into infinity. Your nostrils detect the aroma of chilled dirt anew, more pronounced. It doesn't offend. It conveys reliability. That's crucial. Recognizable odors steady the psyche amid adversity. Those early dwellers frequently noted cultivating reliance on bodily signals over timepieces or seasonal markers. The shelter imparts this lesson fast. Drowsiness ebbs and flows. You float off, rouse, fine-tune, then surrender again. With each cycle, the frost alters subtly, not intensifying or fading, merely shifting positions. It follows your motions. It gathers in spots where material wears thin, where forms draw apart. You inch toward the heat source instinctively, still mostly asleep, in a reflex honed through countless chilly hours. Gradually, the chill shifts from foe to fact, a reality you navigate rather than resist. This quiet change in mindset proves essential. Those who endure the harsh plain winters frequently speak of a turning point where battling the freeze drained more strength than simply bearing it. Embracing it preserved vital reserves. That embrace starts right here, amid the shadows and drowsiness. Your breaths grow fuller once more. The dugout remains firm. Fresh snow piles up overhead, creating yet another barrier from the open heavens. Below ground, the chill lingers persistently, yet never dominates. It blends into the ambiance, much like the subtle drone of quiet. You settle into that equilibrium, absorbing effortlessly the ways of subterranean cold. When you rouse yourself next, the earthen aroma intensifies, as though the walls have chosen to murmur a bit more insistently. That's the nature of sod. It gives off smells based on the chill and humidity, forming a silent dialect you gradually decipher. The atmosphere blends icy dirt, withered stalks, and faint remnants of evening's fire, all mingling smoothly without harsh contrasts. You rise with care, avoiding the low-hanging timbers above. Quarters feel precise in this place, and you've mapped their confines through feel, not vision. Your hand extends to rest flat against the side. It's chilled, yielding like ocean mud, with a touch of wetness. The texture yields faintly, a cue that this isn't rock. Every sod chunk came straight from the grassland, turned roots upward, and piled like giant masonry. A key bit of lore notes the builder's choice of tough-rooted prairie types, such as buffalo grass, which locked the dirt in place and prevented erosion. Pressing against it now, those fibers pulse subtly, akin to hidden vessels under flesh. The barrier feels raw, unfinished. No coating, no color, no divide from the soil. At first, this intimacy jars. Then it roots you deeply. You start to rely on it. Dirt sides muffle noises, dampen jolts, even out heat fluctuations. They overlook errors, too. A misplaced arm won't scar it. A fallen item stays silent. The dugout pardons minor awkwardness. A dim glow seeps through the entry, not from a bright sun, but from the snow's reflective bounce of sparse winter light. Within, it casts a subdued palette of tan and amber. Contours blur gently. Sharp lines fade away. Mornings stretch out because of it. You don't bound into wakefulness. You surface from rest like tendrils pushing through loam. Slowly, unceremoniously, you spot the deeper stain low on the wall by the ground. Water gathers there, pulled down by weight and frost. It's no surprise. Folks in these earth dwellings took the damp in stride, handling it without wiping it out entirely. Accounts from the era highlight settlers lifting their bedding midday to allow circulation below, curbing mold growth. Crude, sure, but effective most times. You inhale fully, sensing the air's density. It's denser indoors, clinging to heat better, yet trapping odors too. Hence the need for airflow. A narrow chimney pokes out the top, packed tight with mud to block dripping melt. Overly snug, and the flames suffocate. Too slack, and drips invade. Equilibrium reigns once more. It all circles back to that. As you stir, the side yields with a soft sift, not a tumble, merely a hush of earth realigning. The noise doesn't alarm you. You've discerned the line between vital soil and breaking frame. The dugout constantly adapts, yielding to the heave of ice and the burden from above. Scholars debate even now if these turf builds needed more everyday tending than timber homes, or if their give truly warded off total ruin. With your fingers spread on the surface, that give hums beneath. You ponder the toil behind erecting this haven. Slicing turf was grueling work. Worst in the heat of late summer, when the growth was dense and the glare relentless. Still, pioneers favored it over dragging timber over vast empty stretches. The flats provided the stuff at hand, but exacted deference in trade. You sense that deference in the precise layering, the buttressed angles, the added bulk on the northern face where gales batter fiercest. Up high, the wall carries a milder note, almost sugary. There, the chunks stay parched. Heated by the slow climb of pocketed warmth, You lean your brow to it briefly, lids shut, noting the contrast. Such a small gesture turns soothing. You link these feels to security now. Slick finish surfaces would seem alien, remote. Cloth grazes the ground as you shift, and you no longer startle. In the beginning, you fretted over grime, bugs, whatever might emerge from the sides. Things did slink out, arachnids, crawlers, now and then a rodent chasing coziness. On most evenings, the critters keep their distance. One pioneer's odd recollection mentions cramming gaps with kerosene-drenched cloths to ward off intruders, a trick that works well, though it reeks. A subtle smile crosses your face at the thought, since today's dugout air carries a milder aroma by comparison. You settle back onto the bedding and tune in once more. The walls dampen all external noise. The breeze turns into a subtle freshness, not an audible rush. The snowfall registers as added pressure, not visible drift. Your pulse even seems subdued. This environment molds your thinking. It dials down the pace. Your thoughts drift less wildly now, looping through well-trodden trails rather than sprinting through an entire year. Drowsiness hangs in the air, nurtured by the unchanging surroundings. Unlike wooden structures, sod walls retain heat in a unique way. They don't disperse warmth rapidly. Any heat they absorb clings tightly, locked within the soil and root layers. That's the reason the dugout seldom bites as fiercely as the exposed plains on the coldest evenings. New arrivals often expressed shock in their correspondence, assuming life below ground would mean constant chill, but reality soon set them straight. You adjust the blanket once more, your elbow grazing the wall. A light smudge of earth stains your sleeve. No need to brush it off. Here, tidiness is a flexible concept. Staying alive trumps looking pristine, and garments carry the marks of their surroundings and the weather. The grime grows comforting, like an old friend. As daylight creeps onward, illumination alters gently, revealing the wall's faint respiration in response. Moisture eases back slightly. The odor evolves. Though you haven't stepped outside, you sense the outer world in flux. That link is vital. It anchors you, even in this buried space. At last, you recline fully, not from an urge to nap anew, but because repose suits this place instinctively. The walls embrace both noise and reflection. You shut your eyes, allowing the sod's rough essence to persist in your senses. A silent ally forged from the grassland. The ground supports you gently, without force. The overhead surface draws your notice before your mind fully registers it, not through sight initially, but via echoes and subtle force. Flat on your back, you perceive it looming just inches from your features, near enough to prompt careful motions on reflex. The supporting beams murmur faintly, not in protest, but as a dialogue with their burden. The snow has truly blanketed the landscape now, accumulating as it invariably does across the flats, steadily, relentlessly. The roof isn't even keeled, it's a composite affair. Sturdy timber logs span the interior, placed closely together. Bits of bark occasionally remain, since removing it demanded effort that early settlers couldn't spare. Atop the logs comes turf, followed by dirt, then any sealants the inhabitants chose to apply. Historical accounts confirm that such roofing wasn't mere haste, but a practical evolution drawn from native earth dwellings and honed by hardship. Folks relied on proven techniques, no matter the origin. As you rest there, you attend to the roof's subtle labors, a quiet adjustment, a gentle subsidence, followed by calm. The accumulation bears down, yet it also shields against drafts and tempers, the chill's fluctuations. This understated perk of subterranean rest frequently caught letter writers off guard in their dispatches. The covering doesn't merely shield, it balances. You raise a palm and gesture through the space over your head, halting far from contact. Trial and error has etched its boundaries for you, elbows knocked, strands of hair dusted with soil. The low span instills mindfulness. Its nearness defies oversight. In that sense, it seems almost vigilant, more entity than edifice. Humidity behaves oddly up top. Rising warmth encounters chilled earth, occasionally forming beads. You've witnessed them gather and plummet, splattering bedding or skin at awkward times. To counter this, countless dugout makers piled additional thatch or hay atop the sod supports, forming a basic buffer. A minor yet vivid entry in Frontier Diaries notes residents suspending fabric remnants from above to snare leaks, a simple fix for an ongoing irritant. You stir a bit, and the roof replies with a hushed groan. The noise doesn't alarm you. Time has schooled you in distinguishing routine shifts from peril. A structural failure would signal far more dramatically. Still, there are evenings when doubt creeps in unbidden. During fierce gales that rage overhead or blasts that sweep the plains bare, it's impossible not to picture the mass suspended above. Snow, mud, iced vegetation bearing down as you slumber below. Debates persist on the roof's reliability amid harsh conditions. Certain narratives highlight their unexpected resilience. Others recount breakdowns after drenching storms and thaws that rendered the sod fragile. You dwell in the midst of those debates, relying on the haven out of necessity while remaining attuned to its whims. The roof influences your slumber visions too. The gloom presses denser in this confined space. Your dreams turn to soil and compression, to containment rather than descent. Folks in later years often remembered how slumber in those dugouts led to deeper dreams, not always night terrors, but ones that were thick, deliberate, and intensely real. It's hard to say if that came from the mind or the body, yet the trend showed up so frequently that it stood out. Noises move oddly through the turf walls. You miss the hush of snow drifting down, catching just its aftermath. The wind's wail doesn't reach you directly. Instead, you sense how it pulls the roof tighter. Creatures stirring on the surface turn into vague tremors, stripped of their original clamor. Such a muffling turns the dugout into a distinct realm, shielded rather than cut off. For a moment, you ponder beds under vast stars, with canvas tents flapping wildly or wooden homes creaking endlessly on stormy nights. Against that, this overhead barrier seems reliable, even as it flakes a bit. It's snug, sure, but that snugness brings solace when the choice is raw openness. Your breaths ease once more. You ease off staring at the overhead and allow it to recede into the background of your thoughts. The structure performs its role most effectively when you stop dwelling on it. Outside, the snow piles up silently, boosting the barrier that holds in your warmth through the deepest chill before daybreak. As sleep beckons you back, that roof stays firm and unhurried. It won't swear to total security. What it gives is reliability. And out on the grasslands in the cold season, that's sufficient. Nightfall creeps into the dugout well ahead of the sun's leisurely trek over the open lands. You sense it as edges blur at first, followed by forms, making the space contract without any real shift in dimensions. Below ground, illumination acts unlike above. It doesn't wander freely. It clings to its spot and resists stretching out. You tweak the lantern, trimming the wick with care so the fire shifts to a calm radiance from its jittery dance. Oil is too valuable to squander. Even with decent stocks, excess feels like folly in the frost. As journals from homesteaders of the era reveal, they skimped on lamp fuel more tightly than rations. They understood shadow ruled nearly everything else. Lacking glow, efforts falter, and errors surge. The earth walls soak up the shine much like they swallow echoes. Surfaces gulp it down. That overhead keeps it contained, blocking any bounce back. Outlines grow gentler, hazier. Expressions turn implied, not sharp. This mellowing lends the place an ancient air, nearly eternal, like you've slipped beyond the usual cycle of light and dark into a more languid pace. You settle in silence, giving your vision time to adapt anew. Subterranean gloom isn't absolute, yet it lingers stubbornly. With the lantern alight, you're still mindful of its fragility. One gust or slip, and the chamber plunges toward utter dark. That awareness breeds calm. You recall how brightness once governed every moment above ground, with dawn and dusk pulling focus. Down here, those cues soften. You turn to habits for guidance. Flames get stoked out of necessity, not celestial cues. Eating aligns with waning strength. Rest arrives when exhaustion permits. This quiet shift in tempo runs deep, though seldom highlighted. A key but ignored truth of turf dwellings was how winter hours seemed briefer. Beyond just the position on the map and the time of year, the inner dimness curbed what could get done. Activity simply dropped. Correspondence from those days speaks of drawn-out twilights passed in hush, saving the glow, tuning in more than acting. That required quiet, reshaped routines and outlooks. You observe how the gloom hones the other faculties. Audio draws nearer. Aromas stand out sharper. The subtle earthiness grows richer as the lantern's heat subtly warms the space. You detect another stir close by without a glance. Breath rhythms grow known. Shadow imparts focus. At times, a twinge of discomfort weaves in amid the dim. Our kind isn't wired for prolonged lightlessness. You assure yourself it's fleeting. That morning light will come in time, though you might not catch it firsthand. Experts have debated for ages the toll of drawn-out wintry dark on plains dwellers' spirits, views spanning from minor bother to real burden. The reality probably differed person to person, molded by inner fortitude, hopes, and situation. You recline and shut your lids, not for slumber quite, but to ease the strain. Closing them doesn't banish the dark, it intensifies. That might press in oppressively, but here it wraps like a guard. No eyes find you, no action is called for. Existence shrinks to a handleable scope. A quaint practice caught in various journals involved placing shiny items by the lamps to eke out the scant rays. Metal dishes, buffed utensils, or even basins of water got set to snag and bounce the gleam. The gain was small, but the effort counted. They grabbed at mastery over the void however they might. In time, the lantern dims more before going out entirely. The shift hits swift and total. Nightfall envelops the dugout completely, enveloping it in a silence that weighs more than earlier. As you stretch out on the ground, you're aware of the low roof overhead and the enclosing walls nearby. Though invisible, they influence your form, easing it into repose. Your breaths grow fuller and slower. Ideas blur at the edges. The absence of light strips away diversions. No sights demand attention. No visual paths pull the mind astray. Instead, it folds back on itself and meanders freely. Beyond these walls, the vast prairie endures its extended winter darkness. Within, you hover in a haven of soil and obscurity, allowing hours to slip by unmarked. What once felt like a burden to withstand now transforms into a realm to dwell within. Rest comes more readily, aided by the void of illumination and the reliable enclosure around you. The instant you adjust your position, the ground asserts its presence. It neither groans nor yields. It merely affirms its solidity. Unmovable under the padding of fabrics and routines, reposing upon the land differs sharply from beds elevated on constructed frames. There's no give, no cushion. Any heat you carry must be guarded closely or yielded gradually, bit by bit, to the subsurface. It registers strongest at your hips and shoulders, where your frame presses nearest to the soil. Despite the padding of quilts below, chill rises steadily, unhurried and relentless. Those who homesteaded the prairies grasped this truth without delay. Diaries from their homes often stress floor protection as vital, sometimes more than for the sides. Bundles of hay, withered vegetation, worn pelts, or compressed foliage went under the pallets as available. That base was crucial. When you press your hand flat, the compacted dirt pushes back. It's been pounded dense, perhaps blended with clay or cinders for better stability. Gradually, it polishes where steps tread frequently, faint trails etched into the surface. Such traces aren't erased. They signal activity, evidence that this place pulses with life. The chill emanating from below acts unlike aerial frostiness. It doesn't nip sharply. It saps vitality. Your limbs grow leaden, blood flow diminishing. That's why you bundle them snugly, knees drawn up a touch, toes curled in. How you arrange yourself turns into a calculated choice. Repose demands active oversight here, not mere surrender. Homesteaders' correspondence captures a key insight. Folks would position planks or salvaged wagon panels right under their setups, forming a shield against the soil. These improvised bases were treasured, rough edges and all, since they blocked the relentless chill's draw. If wood ran short, sleepers would alternate spots overnight, spreading the dull ache so no one limb suffered excessively. You reposition with care, unhurried. Abrupt shifts squander precious heat. Experience teaches that the ground rewards restraint. After your own warmth carves out a faint basin underneath, minimal motion preserves it. Excess stirring starts the warming over. Scholars studying pioneer hardships debate the role of ground-transferred cold in winter ailments versus leaks of air or poor diet. Certain experts deem it pivotal. Others view it as just another element in a complex mix. Stretched out here, sensing the frost inching up regardless of precautions, it's tough to dismiss its weight. Sound travels uniquely through the floor as well. Steps from the surface above arrive muffled by the time they filter down. Your motions indoors remain hushed. Cloth brushing earth yields a soft murmur, not a harsh drag. Such hush fosters tender moods. You master turning over smoothly to realign without shattering the calm. Dampness clings closest to the base above all. Certain dawns greet you with a chill, faintly moist surface where exhaled warmth has pooled into dew. This subtle wetness demands vigilance, not alarm. Pads get raised in daylight. Covers get shaken out when skies permit. Oversight breeds fungus and ailment. Tending to it turns habitual. Recall the oddity of first settling your sleeping spot straight onto sod. It all appeared so fleeting then. In time, that unease dissolves. The surface turns known. Dependable. You sense its minor hollows and elevations by the barrier, charting them instinctively to sidestep unease, even unconscious. As darkness thickens, the ground sustains its gradual trade with you. It claims your heat, true, but offers balance in return. No rocking, no tremors, no unstable base. During gales, as gusts howl overhead and other builds shudder, this level stays steady. Such reliability soothes. You pull the cover nearer for the final adjustment and ease your tension as far as caution allows. The dirt supporting you stands resolute, impartial, yet trustworthy. Repose reclaims you, molded by firmness and hush, truly anchored. Dampness reveals itself prior to visibility. It emerges as sensation initially, a persistent chill on flesh and coverings that lingers tenaciously. You stir awake, aware that the atmosphere now carries a subtle heft, sufficient to adhere rather than bear down. Your exhalation persists unusually. Suspended lightly before your eyes in the subdued light until it fades away. Drawing in a measured breath, you detect the odor. It's more biting than the evening before, laced with damp soil and fleece. While you rested, the sod dwelling has been exchanging air in its own way. Rising warmth encountered the chilled earthen barrier and yielded a portion of its essence. Such interactions occur nightly during the cold season, subtle and reliable as clockwork. Accounts from grassland homesteads consistently indicate that humidity came as no shock to pioneers. It was simply a routine reality they navigated each day. As you rise, the coverlet grazes your face with a light chill. Not drenched, yet far from arid. Such unease accumulates steadily if overlooked. Humidity saps heat more swiftly than mere chill ever could. Settlers grasped that truth soon enough, at times through harsh experience. You raise the coverlet and shake it softly, permitting circulation despite the scarcity of fresh drafts. The lower sections of the walls appear shadowed once more. Your fingers brush one, sensing a subtle gloss. No drops form. It's merely retaining. Soil acts this way when frost immobilizes liquid. This isn't a sign of structural defeat. It's merely performing true to form. You nudge your sleeping arrangements a bit farther from the barrier, forming a slim space. That minor tweak proves effective. Circulation requires roots, however sluggish. A peculiar custom emerges in winter diaries, where folks elevated their bedding on twigs or unused implements by daylight, allowing wetness to drain below instead of persisting. It appears clumsy, yet it suffices admirably. For an instant, respiration turns deliberate. You opt for unhurried, fuller inhalations to minimize extra vapor. The hearth has lost its overnight glow, leaving the atmosphere more stagnant without its subtle draw. You resolve to crack the entrance soon, despite the incoming frost. Renewal outweighs the drawback. The sod home imparts another lesson in balance. Overmuch airflow welcomes frost in flakes. Too scant confines wetness and fumes. You've grown adept at gauging through aroma and touch. Not rigid guidelines. When the breeze feels laden on the tongue, action beckons. When your flesh turns sticky, it's urgent. At the outset, it seemed odd to fret over respiration itself. Out in vast expanses, it's effortless instinct. Confined here, it joins the tally of everyday choices. Survivor logs highlight an acute consciousness of atmospheric purity, well ahead of contemporary terms for it. Migraines, vertigo, and lingering hacks were recalled as tied to inadequate airflow. Scholars still quarrel over the actual perils of earth shelters regarding ventilation. Certain experts claim the soil barriers permitted greater interplay than timber shelters. Counterarguments cite plentiful tales of ailments connected to fumes and humidity. Like much of frontier existence, outcomes probably hinged on expertise, attentiveness, and fortune. You clasp your palms to generate friction and heat, then halt. Unneeded motion breeds perspiration, which nurtures dampness. Even ease demands caution. You clear dew from a nearby tin vessel's interior, startled by the accumulation since dusk. It's a subtle cue of the unnoticed fluids your form expels. Sound travels altered in this humidity. Inhales resonate more prominently. Cloth shifts murmur distinctly. The dwelling appears to attune itself alongside you. Such sharpened perception might disturb, but familiarity has softened it. Humid conditions blunt outlines, mute feelings, temper cognition. You settle back, positioning coverings with care so they layer without confining vapor too close to your features. You angle your face aside, forging a minor pathway for exhalations to rise. This routine has sharpened through countless evenings. A minor yet revealing note in recollections speaks of suspending parched botanicals or foliage from overhead, not just for fragrance, but to draw in some humidity. Sage, sweet grass, anything at hand. The impact was limited, yet the effort signified resolve. Folks sought to lighten the enclosure's burden, its seclusion. As darkness thickens anew, humidity achieves a fleeting equilibrium. Your vitality kindles a localized warmth. The barriers stay firm. The overhead stays silent. Beyond, flakes persist in their gradual layering, blanketing existence in pallor. Direct concern for wetness recedes. It merges into the ambiance, a mere circumstance over peril. That transition holds value. Those who weathered grassland colds frequently recounted discerning urgent aches from bearable ones. Humid breezes fell into the latter group on most evenings. Your respiration steady. The atmosphere lightens somewhat. Maybe residual stove heat lingers. Maybe adaptation has taken hold. Regardless, the sod refugee endures as habitable, and habitable suffices. Sleep creeps back softly, infused with the aroma of soil and wool drifting uneven. Unhurried inhalations. The sod dugout rises and falls in rhythm with yours, calm and subdued, until consciousness slips away once more. These days, you don't strip down completely, even for rest. That old routine vanishes fast as the chill of winter takes hold, giving way to choices rooted in utility over nostalgia. Your garments merge with the bedding, serving as vital padding instead of mere items to discard after dark. You rouse with fastenings secured, cuffs pulled down to cover hands, folds enveloping you like an extra layer of hide. Initially, it was cumbersome, fabrics clumping, ridges digging into spots only felt when immobile. Yet unease ebbs quicker than frost, and instinct sharpens what counts. Resting in attire means warmer repose, and heat trumps comfort every time. Tales from pioneer homes routinely reveal that folks slumbered in almost every stitch of their daily wear during the harshest seasons, doffing just their footwear if luck allowed. You stir a touch, sensing material rustle over material, wool brushing cotton strata, creating tiny air traps. That's the aim. Captured air heats up fast and lingers if left undisturbed. Hence, baggy outfits outperform snug ones, a truth grasped not from books, but from trial and error. You recall cinching a strap too tight one time, only to greet dawn feeling icier. Your overcoat rests nearby, folded but within reach to drape across your chest should the darkness bite deeper. It carries a subtle whiff of hearth smoke and biting gusts, a nod to the outdoors above. The familiarity comforts you. Such odors ground your senses, signaling your surroundings and the demands ahead. Keeping hands in check proves trickiest. Mittens hinder dexterity, yet exposed digits throb. You settle for a middle path, sliding them into cuffs and nestling against your body. As the freeze lingers, this stance turns instinctive. Even amid slumber, you draw into yourself, hoarding warmth instinctively. No lesson spelled it out. You picked it up by stirring less when positioned right. A clever hack from old settler journals mentions crafting little pouches into sleep shirts for hot items, like rocks warmed by the fire. They'd lose heat soon enough, but that brief solace smoothed the slide into dreams. No heated pebble for you this evening, though the appeal rings true. Dozing in clothes alters your respiration. Cloth close to your mouth tempers the incoming air with mild warmth. You pivot your head away from exhaling straight into coverings, aware that dampness builds up. This tug of war between heat and humidity flits through your mind momentarily, then embeds as routine. Readiness factors in too. Clad for bed, you're primed to bolt if required. Blazes spread, tempests rage, beasts prowl near. Prairie chronicles often highlight how settlers prized instant mobility upon stirring, particularly in gales or crises. Outfits remained donned because delay spelled danger. You recall evenings when blasts shoved flakes past door cracks, scattering white dust indoors. Then staying clothed shifted from caution to survival. Even tonight, as the shelter stands firm, the practice endures. As you roll to one side, the wrappings press anew. Clasps poke faintly. Your skilled hands tweak them, easing a spot, flattening another, without rousing fully. These minor fixes preserve unbroken rest. The form adapts to fix issues silently. Scholars debate the merits of layered dress versus standalone heavy covers. Some argue dense comforters held greater sway. Others contend that padding flattens underweight, squandering insulation, thus demanding apparel from your spot against the earth, sensing its constant drain on your heat. The verdict seems plain. Your toes resist most. Stockings stack upon stockings, perhaps odd pairs, perhaps threadbare. You chafe them gently, kindling faint friction warmth before easing back. Footwear waits close, tipped over to let dampness evaporate. Slipping into iced leather at dawn is a trial you dodge at all costs. Attire bears echoes too. Every item holds a tale, a time, a patch sewn by dim lamplight. Taking it to bed is like hauling your waking hours through the dark. No clean break exists between toil and tranquility. One bleeds into the next. For a passing moment, you ponder today's plush mattresses and fresh linens, bare as the grave in repose. The notion seems remote, like a dream. In this place, slumber extends the day's thread, not fleeing it, muted and measured. As darkness thickens, the coverings adjust and align. Heat evens out. Separate pieces blur, forming a unified sheath, bound by wool, cotton, custom, and need. The sod house stays hushed, its roof firm overhead, the sides pressing in snugly. Your breaths level off once more. Slumber slips in unannounced, drawing you down. All your clothes still on, prepared for dawn's surprises. Up on the grassland, the world lingers. Below ground, you repose amid the deliberate decisions that hold the cold at bay. Here, rest isn't wholly alone. Even with lids shut and mind wandering, you're conscious of forms close by. Respires interweave, covers rustle, a leg nudges just beyond reach. Proximity is divided not by fondness, but survival. Heat builds in clusters of folks, and the season offers no room for solo whims. You rouse for a moment at a sudden puff of air from another, followed by a return to calm. It doesn't startle. This cadence has grown routine, even comforting. Out on the vast plain, solitude carries peril. Buried companionship whispers security. You sense another's alertness if trouble stirs. You trust detection of a dwindling blaze. Kin typically bedded down in one chamber, at times stretched in a row against the barrier, other times huddled near the heater. Full stop. Accounts of Earth homes always highlight scant or absent seclusion, particularly after dark. Screens or dividers counted as extravagant rarities. Repose occurred wherever room permitted. You reposition with caution to avoid rousing companions. Motions echo here. A single adjustment sparks a chain. Folks master gradual turns, silent uprisings, subtle signals over speech. Darkness requires teamwork. Young ones master it quickest. They stretch out heedlessly. Pulled by nature to sources of heat, a tiny heel nudges your leg, then eases as doze resumes. No rebukes follow. They're futile. Forms arrange themselves spontaneously in shadow. Joint repose weaves in common odors. Fleece, soot, soil, exhalations. These blend into the dugout's own aroma. Not off-putting, merely thick. You detect shifts, a persistent hack, a whiff hinting at moisture encroaching. Vigilance heightens when all draw from shared atmosphere. A subtle observation from homestead recollections notes households aligning their slumbers to optimize area, rotating in unison to prevent limb knots. It seems improbable at first glance. Lived through, it proves natural. Habits form song guidance. Companions influence the depth of your ease. You withhold total immersion. A portion stays watchful, attuned to shifts in respires or stirrings. This gentle watchfulness hums faintly, not draining, simply there. It's the same instinct that sustained lives amid tempests and ailments. You recharge yet persist. Scholars debate if group bedding boosted endurance in brutal colds or just mirrored cramped confines. Certain voices claim pooled body heat, curbed frost ailments. Counterpoints stress how tight groupings hasten contagions. Each view draws from diaries that blend solace with peril in single passages. You sense the gentle swell and dip of another's chest via the covers. It steadies your tempo. Breaths ease in tandem, then grow profound. Repose turns communal, a silent pact to unwind in harmony. Evening noises dull from flesh, as from soil. Quilts muffle clamor, shifts soften on padding. The heater even hums lower amid the reposeful. The shelter swells with fullness, steadier with all within. Vacant spots chill deeper. You recall prior evenings when slumbers hovered shallow, wary of the haven and one another's quirks. Gradually, acquaintance dulled the sharpness. You mapped the sleep kickers, the murmurers, the early risers. Foreseeability fosters peace. Solace also lies in escaping solitary musings. Anxieties dwindle amid enveloping company. Fellow presence tethers you to habit. Daybreak looms. Duties await. You form a compact unit thriving on collective renewal. A brief, yet telling aside in Prairie letters recounts guardians placing offspring betwixt grown-ups on fiercest evenings, their frames shielding from gusts. It went unframed as offering. It just aligned with reason. You move once more, sensing heat realign. A voice mumbles unclearly, then quiets. The noise is faint, nearly devoured by ground. You curve your lips slightly in gloom, not from mirth, but acknowledgement. This defines the season's hush here. As doze intensifies, edges soften more, covers merge, warmth draws inward. Consciousness dims precisely to permit renewal. You rely on the group for flame tending, portal guarding, alerts to mishaps. Reciprocity binds them to you. The sod house cradles everyone as one. The enclosing walls and low roof remain constant, turning communal quarters into a collective test of resilience. Enveloped in darkness amid the rhythm of breaths and shared body heat, you slip back into slumber, buoyed not only by the surrounding soil, but by the subtle companionship of fellow humans. The open prairie imparts its lessons on tenacity, yet the cold season refines them to perfection. This truth dawns on you upon stirring in the sod shelter, struck by the scarcity of audible elements. No avian calls, no buzzing insects. The breeze itself seems remote, its murmur dampened long before it penetrates your refuge. A thick layer of snow drapes the surface world like a dense coverlet, compressing all echoes into oblivion. What lingers isn't void, but a gentle, persistent hush that permeates rather than reverberates. You stay motionless, tuning in regardless. Vigilance from routine keeps your senses sharp. This hush isn't total, it carries nuance. Nearby, there's the languid respiration of a slumbering companion, the soft pop of an ember cooling in the stove, the barely detectable creak of the earthen walls adjusting to the chill. These subtle noises demand an expansive focus to perceive them fully. Settlers who endured such harsh prairie seasons frequently noted this subdued realm. Journals and memoirs from those vast grasslands consistently describe how deep snowfall alters acoustics, distorting perceptions of range and rendering motion ethereal. Wayfarers recount calling out only for their words to vanish swiftly, as though the terrain rejected their propagation. Within the dugout, this phenomenon amplifies. The ground soaks up whatever faint clamor persists. Your own actions sound oddly subdued. Tilting your head against the bedding produces mere susurrus. Repositioning your body yields utter quiet from the floor beneath. Hush establishes itself as the norm. Initially, this tranquility unnerved you. Your instincts anticipated signals. Lacking them, your mind meandered, seeking anchors. Gradually, the quiet grew comforting. You adapted to repose within it, ceasing to fight. The long winter evenings hone that ability, willingly or otherwise. You observe how the stillness heightens perception. A minor noise gains significance. A sneeze holds weight. An alteration in someone's respiration pulls focus. Thus, the quiet fosters bonds among you all. Even in supposed sleep, you're attuned to the surroundings. A recurring, seemingly trivial observation in frontier logs concerns detecting the slide of snow from far-off rooftops during the night. That noise travels distinctly through the calm interior air of the shelter. You don't detect it audibly. Instead, you sense it, a faint variation in atmospheric weight, a tweak in the roof's stability. The hush also elongates the sense of time. Absent auditory markers for fleeting instants, minutes merge indistinctly. You might have been awake for mere heartbeats or an eternity. The distinction fades in relevance. The season instills forbearance via repetition, Evenings stretch endlessly, offering no incentive to hasten them. Considerable debate persists on the mental toll of such extended tranquility. Certain narratives imply it fostered serenity and concentration. Others allude to agitation and disquiet, particularly for those unused to seclusion. The records diverge, influenced by individual disposition and context. For you, the quiet eases your inhalations effortlessly. Your form conforms, harmonizing with the enveloping calm. Tension eases from your limbs. Even mental activity decelerates. No longer racing forward, there's no urgency anywhere. The expanse halts. Beyond, the grassland slumbers beneath its icy shroud, immense and featureless. That immensity might overwhelm if you faced it exposed. Here, cocooned in the soil, it feels contained. The silence contracts existence to the dugout's confines, reducing the inhabitants to the reliable haven they share. You recall earlier evenings in the season, when gales battered relentlessly and clamor invaded without cease. Those periods dragged on, exhausting in their intensity. By comparison, this quiet proves restorative. No diversions intrude. No urgencies arise save for the essential. You adjust your position minutely, then halt. The calm reasserts itself instantly, as if poised in anticipation. This immediacy instills an odd authority. You hold the option to introduce noise, yet aren't compelled to. Usually, you opt for restraint. A minor solace noted in seasonal letters involves folks murmuring tunes softly prior to dozing, not to banish the hush, but to probe its boundaries, affirming that audio persists when desired. You ponder trying it, then forgo the idea. The present quiet suffices entirely. As drowsiness nears once more, the silence enfolds more snugly. It ceases to seem barren. It feels replete, akin to a sustained exhalation. You rely on it fully. You understand that vital noises will pierce it. All else can defer to dawn. The sod dwelling stays serene. Above, the flakes persist in their gradual task. Within, the lack of din evolves into its own refuge, safeguarding slumber, much as the ground guards against the frost. You allow that hush to guide you deeper into repose, to a realm where vigilance yields entirely. The flames don't command the space. They simply blend with it. You awaken sensing warmth before anything else, a subtle essence that assures you the darkness didn't overwhelm the shelter. The stove hunkers down modestly in the corner. Its iron surface gleams darkly, its contours so ingrained in your memory that you could sketch them blindfolded. It doesn't blaze wildly. Instead, it pulses gently, mirroring how winter's elements simmer rather than surge. You tune in to its rhythm prior to glancing over. A quiet click echoes as the metal cools. A soft shift emanates from its core. Such indicators are favorable. They signal the embers were covered right before bed, with ashes layered over, and the vent adjusted precisely to sustain them. Diaries from frontier homes often emphasize that managing the stove capped the evening and kicked off the day. Flames require vigilance, yet they rewarded diligence with endurance. Extending your leg, you detect a remnant of heat radiating outward, insufficient to thaw the space entirely, yet potent enough to blunt the chill seeping from below. Striking this equilibrium is crucial. Excess blaze parches the atmosphere and fissures the walls. Scant flames summon ice and hardship. Coexisting with fire hinges more on rhythm than ferocity. Beyond mere temperature, the stove stirs the air. That persistent pull generates an unseen circulation you sense rather than observe. Wisps of smoke ascend when kindled. Humidity redistributes. Heat rises instead of cooling. Over time, you've come to rely on that hidden flow. Should it waver, the space registers as off-kilter right away. Winter journals frequently capture a tender nuance, folks murmuring to the blaze while fine-tuning it, as if persuading instead of ordering. Twisting the flue, lightly brushing away residue. Patience draws the best reply from fire. That lesson resonates with you fully now. Propping yourself up, you introduce one chunk of kindling. Not timber, but parched bison dung or coiled grassland if logs run low. Across the plains, sustenance for the hearth derived from whatever yielded it. Correspondents sent eastward commonly expressed astonishment at the potency of these substitutes, despite their distinct aroma. Heat outweighed any odor, as the fresh addition ignites. The stove emits a low murmur. The tone is understated, yet comforting. It permeates the interior sufficiently to affirm an ally laboring in your favor. You avoid fixating on the glow. A quick check suffices before averting your gaze. Flames merit deference, not fixation. Scholars still debate the reliability of these compact heaters within earthen homes. Certain experts claim the breathable barriers minimized fume accumulation. Counter-arguments cite documented mishaps and ailments linked to inadequate airflow. Reality resides in the middle ground, forged by expertise, watchfulness, and raw familiarity. Adaptation came swiftly, or endurance proved fleeting. You observed the blaze's influence on repose. Evenings anchored by a reliable stove alter bodily sensations. Tension eases more completely. Respiration grows fuller faster. Visions in slumber appear less turbulent. Without fire's buffer against frost, awareness lingers partially awake. Heat enables release. The stove doubles as a timekeeper. By the lingering temperature, you gauge the night's span. Residual tepidity suggests profound rest. A chilled surface implies frequent stirrings. Such instincts supplant clocks and chimes. Homestead records note a sensible routine, placing a pot of water beside the heater through the dark hours. It infused humidity and yielded tepid liquid at daybreak. The benefit was minor, but cherished. No pot graces your setup this evening, though the ingenuity lingers in mind. Solace tended to manifest simply. Easing back, you rest content that the blaze will endure till sunrise. The dugout embraces that choice. Currents stir softly. Heat diffuses gradually. No spectacle unfolds which captures the essence. The fire recedes to a subtle guardian once more, an unobtrusive partner over a central force. It watches the hours without claiming them. Your focus wanders, confident in the stove's proven role. As drowsiness reclaims you, the coziness persists adequately to repel encroaching freeze. The space stays shadowed, vibrant with minor mechanisms in harmony. Blaze, soil, respiration, and renewal sync for additional moments. You slip away once more, enveloped in that deliberate harmony. Certain the heater awaits your return, poised for the minor tweak that holds the season's bite in check. You sense the air leak prior to it escalating. It grazes your foot softly, recedes, then reemerges bolder. Sight isn't needed to pinpoint its origin. The dugout harbors vulnerabilities, areas where the turf has compacted irregularly or where timber joins soil imperfectly. The season excels at exploiting such flaws. Remaining motionless, you follow the cool stream with curiosity over irritation. In these shelters, gusts don't charge. They insinuate, probing crevices deliberately. You register it gliding across the ground, then twisting aloft to touch you. This serves as data, not distress. It reveals what requires attention come dawn. Accounts from early settlers often highlighted how sod buildings seldom sealed fully, and a total sealing was both unfeasible and unnecessary. A bit of airflow prevented smoke from hanging around and controlled moisture levels. The key lay in spotting when that flow turned into an unwelcome breach. You adjust your position a touch, pulling the blanket tighter over your legs. The chill eases somewhat, though it lingers faintly. By the entrance, snow has compacted enough to disrupt the barrier. In the cold season, doors expand and contract with humidity and shifts in weather, and those on dugouts proved particularly finicky. Most were fashioned from repurposed wood or cart panels, stuff not originally designed for such duty. A simple yet ingenious habit appears in seasonal memories, where folks packed extra garment bags or even parched grass into doorway cracks at bedtime, only to pull it out come morning. The fix was fleeting, yet the harsh season called for adaptability over lasting fixes. A subtle grin crosses your face, certain you'll repeat the ritual soon. You tune in for additional cues. A high-pitched whine signals real problems. A constant icy flow would call for immediate intervention, but this one's under control. You draw your feet in nearer and let your own heat reclaim the area. The dugout warms gradually. The air current diminishes more. Dirt walls don't shift fast, but they do adapt. Such deliberate pacing counts among their virtues. Abrupt fluctuations get muted below ground, be they in noise, heat, or activity. Scholars have debated for years if sod dwellings let in more breeze than timber cabins. Certain experts claim the sinking soil opened up constant tiny fissures. Counterpoints emphasize how dense barriers in winter drifts frequently cut wind entry way down. Reality, it seems, hinges on skill in building and upkeep. A tended dugout performed worlds apart from an overlooked one. You recall past evenings when chills went unnoticed until your frame rebelled much later. Time has honed your senses. These days, you catch them soon and tweak things softly, staying mostly asleep. It's a subtle talent built from routine. The airflow also brings muffled audio, altered and subdued. A far-off trickle overhead, flakes scraping the entry. Such sounds come across buffered, robbed of any edge. The dugout reinterprets the outer realm into milder versions, even as the frost season nudges its way in. You place a palm against the wall, sensing a gentle, cool streak tracing its length. The chill outlines the current's route like a hidden trail. You commit it to memory instinctively, already plotting spots for added earth clumps or cloth shims come daylight. Surviving the freeze turns all into unobtrusive tinkerers. One more minor tactic emerges from settler notes, noting how individuals draped thick drapes or blankets by entrances after dark, not for seclusion, but to halt breezes. The material snagged the flows and tamed them, forming zones of steadier air. It lacked finesse, but polish wasn't the point. Your breath evens out once more. The chill now registers as a mere whisper, not a bother. You allow it to be, offering no fight. Not all unease demands total banishment. Some just ask for recognition. As flakes build up beyond, the dugout quiets more, plugging many openings on its own. Frost serves as foe and friend alike. It bears down, yet it shields too. You notice the atmosphere steadying a fraction as darkness thickens. At last, the current blends into the ambient entirely. You cease following it. Your form unwinds anew, confident that any abrupt shift won't slip by. The routines you've built guard you without stealing your rest. You move again, more languidly now, settling into a spot where heat spreads uniform. The ground draws less insistently. The roof stays silent. The barriers hold their constant vigil. Slumber reclaims you, bringing the certainty that the cold will probe every flaw, but vigilance and minor tweaks often suffice. The dugout thrives without flawlessness. It flourishes on tending. You slip away once more, mindful of the realm overhead, yet anchored firmly beneath. Nestled in a haven that yields softly when the freeze probes, you detect the creatures prior to their sounds. It starts as a subtle intuition, a sense that life stirs near, sharing the same icy ordeal you're evading. The dugout doesn't shut out that sense. It refines it. Noises reach you damped, reshaped through dirt, and drifts into soft hints instead of jarring alerts. You remain motionless and attend sharper. There, a subdued scrape along the exterior barrier. Outside, harmless, simply adjacent. Beings chase the identical comforts you pursue amid winter's clamp. Refuge, calm, a haven winds can't pierce with ease. Plains frosts drive wildlife close to settled zones, invited or otherwise. Field mice, rabbits, and even wandering livestock edge nearer to sources of heat and solidity as the chill drags on. Tales from frontier outposts in winter often highlight how sod huts drew in creatures merely by interrupting the endless flatness of the terrain. Whatever blocked the gusts turned into a prize. The noise reaching your ears at this moment is faint and intentional. A light scraping, followed by a hush, then quiet. You wisely avoid any abrupt motion. Beasts pick up on tremors before anything else. Remaining motionless preserves harmony on either side of the barrier. You picture a rodent tucked amid the earthen chunks, form huddled close, exchanging heat through mere layers of dirt. The image doesn't unsettle you. It seems fitting even. Existence gathers wherever the elements permit. The season dissolves divisions in no time. Early homesteaders and dugouts recalled moments of astonishment at how frequently wildlife treated their abodes as guideposts rather than endpoints. A subtle custom emerges in seasonal diaries, where folks scattered cinders or light grit beyond their barriers to trace critter paths once flakes accumulated. Come dawn, those traces narrated tales of transit, halts, and even brief intrusions. A gentle thud echoes from overhead, succeeded by stillness. Drifts adjust. Maybe a visitor scaled the top for a spell. Maybe it tumbled away. The overhead holds firm. You've grown accustomed to how these noises recur. Last evening's echoes will probably mirror tonight's. Recognition eases dread. Debates persist among historians on the frequency of bigger beasts leaning into sod walls amid blizzards. Certain views claim that herd animals routinely hugged the sheltered flanks of these homes. Counterpoints insist such events were uncommon, inflated by hindsight. Proof lingers in fragmented accounts and in eroded earth traces observed years afterward. Archives don't fully align. Assurance isn't what you seek at present. Recognition suffices that the dugout isn't cut off from everything. It belongs to the landscape. Fauna circles it. Elements mold it. Frost redefines it. You aren't detached from the grasslands. You're woven within. Yet another noise drifts in, gentler this time, perhaps a subtle gnawing, or simply powder compacting oddly by the entrance. Distinguishing it proves impossible. Yet the ambiguity doesn't unsettle you anymore. Time has shown you which noises count. This isn't one. You draw the covering tighter over your frame, less for the chill than for the solace it evokes. Nesting inside nesting, Fabric inside ground, heat inside calm. Certain pioneers deliberately quartered beasts nearby, erecting earthen enclosures next to or linked with their quarters. Surviving farm logs imply such setups cut down on herd deaths in harsh freezes and added a windbreak. It also entailed coexisting more intimately with fellow beings than today's standards permit. The season forced trade-offs that muddied the divide between folks and fauna. Rhythms of breath from your dugout companions nearby anchor you more than any outer stir. No matter what prowls past the edges, it won't breach easily. Human flames and clamor stake claims plainly. You recall earlier evenings this year when odd noises jolted you alert. Muscles coiled, primed for action. Gradually, your responses eased. Habit revealed that the bulk of these passed harmlessly. The plains hum with activity year-round, merely hushed in the frost. Pests within pose another issue. Bugs burrow far into the loam with the drop in temperature, yet rodents and tiny intruders occasionally slip through. You've spotted the clues: minute prints by provision caches, a nook shifted by morning. Alarm doesn't grip you. Provisions get stowed with care. A bit of spoilage gets tolerated. Endurance clarifies priorities. An understated note in cold season correspondence, references to suspending glinting scraps, or chimes by supply spots to catch nighttime activity. The clatter stayed soft, sufficient to warn without rousing all. Imperfect, yet it lent comfort. You reflect on the array of understated safeguards at play here, overlapping and discreet. Beyond, the creature stirs once more, then departs. The echo trails off, absorbed by drifts and dirt. The dugout resumes its even hush. You ease your focus. It dawns that sensing nearby wildlife doesn't heighten unease. It counters isolation. The plains seem less barren when vitality nudges from every angle, even invisible. Frost denudes the expanse of plenty, yet it intensifies what's there. Views diverge on whether such tight quarters with beasts heighten tension or built fortitude in pioneers. Some memoirs cast it as trial, others deem it a form of fellowship. Reality probably hinged on disposition, whether proximity unnerved or steadied. For you this evening, it steadies. You're far from alone in facing the chill. Every living thing out there is grappling with the same harsh weather, each adapting as best it can. You shift your body just a bit, and the heat shifts with it once more. The overhead sod stays solid. The sides keep the outer world at bay. Whatever history has settled into quiet elsewhere, slumber pulls you under again. Your mind wanders lazily, molded by visions of soil in motion and the silent pulse of existence just out of view. The dugout holds you close as the grassland thrums on all around, vibrant even now. In this hush, you allow that realization to take root. The season doesn't wipe out vitality. It packs it tight. Here below, you nestle within your cap, the squeeze secure and toasty, attuned to the noises without grasping every one. You gauge the blizzard by its heft, not its roar. That's the way of things buried deep. The flakes don't crash in with fanfare. They build up gently, one stratum at a time, draping the top until the shelter shifts ever so slightly, like the landscape has edged in nearer. You pick up on it when the roof feels as though it's dropped a touch. Not truly, but in that subtle press registering deep in your skull. You stay put and attune yourself, though listen isn't quite right. It's more like feeling it all. The timbers up top stand strong, yet they don't remain mute. A gentle creak echoes softly. the ground yielding to the planet's own blade, taking on the load that's been laid there. The white blanket weighs down steadily, closing off cracks, leveling the uneven spots, shielding while piling on the strain. Accounts from prairie winters often capture this shift when tempests went from being tallied by gusts to being tracked by buildup. Folks noted rousing to rooftops that bore more load, not from any obvious droop, but from the thicker feel in the very atmosphere. The drifts altered the essence of refuge. You lift your arm on reflex, halting it far from the surface. Brushing it wouldn't alter a thing, but the urge lingers. That sense of the mass overhead never quite slips away. It grows keener in gales such as this, aware that the cover bears extra tonight. The covering up there serves a vital role. It deadens the clamor even more. It locks in the heat. It plugs the little paths where drafts used to sneak past. With every added layer, the place seems more anchored. Such is the oddity of wintry havens. What endangers also safeguards. Homestead tales mention folks venturing out in storm pauses to pile snow purposefully against the walls of their dugouts, bolstering the barrier instead of sweeping it clear. The notion strikes as odd until necessity teaches otherwise. When the mercury plunges low, the powder turns into a resource for building. You tweak your cover and sense the air currents have all but vanished. The atmosphere hangs calmer, less fidgety. The blizzard has achieved what cloth and turf alone couldn't seal fully. It has bound the whole into one serene enclosure. Yet mass keeps mounting. You sense it in how the top reacts to your stirrings. A faint groan emerges where silence ruled before. A profound calm follows. You rely on those rafters, recalling their careful setup. Stout logs spaced tightly, selected with care. Surviving records from builds and settler memories indicate builders obsessed over overhead framework. Understanding collapse from above offered no mercy. Scholars still debate the frequency of sod failures under snowy burdens. Certain accounts stress infrequent but devastating cave-ins amid soggy deluges. Others highlight sturdy ones lasting years untouched. Proof lingers patchily, influenced by what tales got set down and what slipped into oblivion. This evening, you dwell amid those views, leaning on your own felt reality over figures. A slight tremor ripples across the roof, then halts as powder resettles. Maybe a minor shift, maybe just compacting. You don't flinch. You've come to recognize their rhythms. Abrupt cracks would signal trouble. This came gradual and weighted, akin to an exhalation. The gale rages on overhead, unhurried. Moments elongate. No need rises to rise. Whatever needs seeing can hold till dawn. The shelter performs its duty, and you've mastered yielding to it. One entry from Frontier Missives tells of a rising to entrances lost under fresh dumps, the homes so encased that light filtered solely via chimney vents till the shoveling commenced. That image rests easy in your thoughts. You picture the entry blanketed, the realm up top reordered unseen. You draw breath measured, the coziness clinging steadier with the denser cap above. The freeze persists, but distant now. The drifts temper the raw edges, rendering the dark more bearable. At times, the notion of the burden weighs anew. You envision the vast pile of flakes and soil bearing down as you recline below. The idea sparks, then dims. You recall distribution shares the load. The ground knows how to carry. The earth has borne such burdens for ages beyond your lifetime. You adjust your position a bit, sensing no shift in reply. The overhead surface holds firm. The surrounding walls offer no retort. All settles into a hushed, compacted calm. The snowfall has paused for the moment. Accounts vary on whether this enclosed feeling brought more solace or disquiet during extended cold seasons. Certain records point to a sense of safety, like being enveloped and concealed. Others allude to anxiety, as if entombed while still breathing. History accommodates both perspectives. Your reaction varies from evening to evening. This night, it seems safeguarding. The tempest raging overhead stays out of reach. Gusts fail to steal away the warmth. Noises find no entry. The flakes turn this burrow into more of a protective pod than mere refuge. You shut your eyes and cling to that vision. A pod suggests anticipation, not confinement. The cold will yield, the ice will thaw, the burden will ease. Meanwhile, the weight overhead permits repose underneath. Your breaths grow fuller once more. Tension eases from your limbs. The notion of the snow drifts into something vague and remote, more idea than peril. You rely on the covering above. You rely on the ground itself. You rely on the deliberate decisions that form this haven. The gale persists in its gentle, methodical task over the grasslands. Within, you hover just under it, buffered by strata of turf, dirt, timber, and endurance. Slumber reclaims you softly, weighted yet bolstered by the firmness above. The flakes bear down. You repose below, secured by what formerly felt like the greatest hazard. You rouse without haste, as winter mornings demand. Before your lids part, you sense a duty awaiting. The hearth has altered. The atmosphere tells you so, chiller and denser than before. Dying coals whisper their retreat rather than proclaim it. They just cease to yield. You rise gradually, mindful not to rouse the others. Midnight duties unfold in near silence, guided by habit. No irritation arises. This fits the cadence, as routine as inhalation. The open land's harsh colds taught folks to stir without bitterness. Griping squanders vigor, and vigor counts for much. You extend toward the heater and hover your palm by the metal, not yet making contact. A trace of heat lingers, sufficient to build upon. What counts is having enough left to ignite. Journals and memories from the flatlands often highlight a preference for short awakenings to nurture the blaze over letting it extinguish fully and reigniting from scratch on chilled metal. Relighting demanded extra wood and labor. You ease open the heater. A gentle whoosh stirs the cinders and embers inside. You feed it judiciously, piece by piece, attuned to the subtle sign that it takes hold. Overloading or rushing chokes the flame. The blaze honors restraint. The action stirs a companion close by. You detect a stir. A alteration in breath. Silence prevails. Speech holds no place in these hours. All grasp the intent. You seal the heater once more and tweak the vent, reinstating the measured pull that sustains the glow without hastening it. A fleeting chill sweeps in as fresh air flows, drawn to the heat. You fold your arms snugly and endure. It fades soon enough. Always has. Shortly, the coziness will spread anew, radiating in quiet waves. One more slight chore demands notice. Drifts have piled such that the entrance might be half blocked. You hold off on checking it yet. That would usher in frost and fully alert the group. Rather, you fiddle with the fastener, ensuring it operates smoothly. Frost can bind portals if overlooked. You work it once, then secure it. Diaries from the cold months often capture this subtle routine, keeping implements handy after dark for just such instances. A prodder by the heater, a scoop beside the entry, a lantern poised but dark. Readiness eased the mind. Assurance of nearby aids let rest come more soundly. You navigate back to your spot with caution, settling down deliberately to keep the chill from seizing you anew. The covers rustle faintly. The earth dwelling swallows the noise. You stretch out again, drawing the coverlet near, sensing the atmosphere warming already. Scholars still debate the impact of these nocturnal breaks on enduring well-being. Some posit that broken rest exacted a price across the winter span. Others contend that adaptation came swiftly, with profound sleep reclaiming the gaps between stirrings. Accounts from survivors reflect a mix, influenced by years, vitality, and fortitude. For you, the pause registers as slight. The frame adapts. You're alert only to the point of responding, not fretting. Reflections remain grounded, tied to pressing demands. That focus builds through practice. As heat reasserts itself, sinews relax further. The heater murmurs faintly. Iron swelling. That noise comforts, akin to a pulse quickening after stillness. You don't observe it. You count on it to tend itself. You ease into quiet repose, shifting just enough to recapture the cozy nook you'd vacated. The heat rebounds swiftly, molded by layers of bedding, shared presence, and routine. Nearby, a deep sigh signals another's surrender to slumber. The evening slips back into its serene rhythm. Beyond the walls, snowfall keeps the landscape hushed and immobile. Within the sod shelter, life pulses steadily, once more, in equilibrium. Your eyelids lower, aware that another stir might come before daybreak, or perhaps not. Regardless, preparedness defines you. Winter imparts this lesson above all. Not raw power or stamina, but poised reaction. Slumber reclaims you effortlessly, unopposed. The momentary chore is done. No further claims arise. The dugout holds firm, its fire-secured entrance, secure, unyielding. You slip beneath the surface anew, buoyed by the quiet fulfillment of a minor obligation met. On these vast plains in the cold season, endurance through the dark hours stems not from heroic feats, but from such understated acts of tending, done without fuss and soon dismissed from thought. Beneath the soil, visions morph in subtle ways. You sense this not amid the reverie, but upon fleeting emergence, when your reflections weigh upon you like tangible burdens. Here, rest doesn't glide lightly, it sinks in deep. The surrounding ground exerts a gentle compression that tempers cognition, while obscurity erases the typical cues, signaling a dream's close. You rouse from such a vision devoid of vivid remnants, left only with an impression of profound enclosure. It lingers like a visit to a confined, hushed place, known yet elusive in words. Your form stays motionless, hesitant to stir, lest activity unravel the fading illusion prematurely. Those who endured extended prairie chills frequently noted this quality of repose. Correspondence from that era often highlights how slumbers grew more extended, intricate, and elusive in the harshest weather, particularly among sod home dwellers. Whether due to gloom, immobility, or fatigue remains debated. Undeniable, though, is the altered essence of such rest. You rest in silence, allowing echoes to dissipate. The shelter seems unaltered. Its overhead plane endures solid. The atmosphere hangs tranquil. No external changes have intruded upon your frame. Internally, a further deceleration takes hold, sinking to a profounder cadence. Reveries return unnoticed as you nod off once more. Now they progress languidly, expanding saw haste. You perceive soil, compression, heat held inward instead of spilling free. No pursuit, no descent, no abrupt contours. Consciousness echoes its environment. Eventually, an auditory element emerges within the vision. Not clamor, but a subtle essence akin to breathing's resonance or flame's recollection. Upon resurfacing, you identify it as the stove's gentle ticks, steel warming and stretching with the spreading coziness. That rhythm has threaded into your unconscious. A peculiar observation recurs in various seasonal accounts. Folks envisioning burial depths even in surface abodes, as though Psyche bore the sod hut's essence far beyond its confines. Proximity to the ground in repose appears to etch an enduring mark on fancy, persisting well after the frost recedes. You take care now, subtly, to avoid upsetting the equilibrium achieved. Any motion carries added heft, like the subsoil pushing back against abrupt shifts. This push extends beyond the corporeal. It touches the psyche. The sod home fosters persistence over breaks. Scholars continue to debate if these shifted repose cycles proved rejuvenating or burdensome in the long run. Certain analyses propose that profounder rest aided rebound from unrelenting chill strain. Counterviews hint that laden vision-rich nights might induce lethargy or bewilderment at dawn. Survivor tales affirm both perspectives, varying by person. For you this evening, it anchors firmly. Visions don't whisk you from the now. They tether you nearer. On brief arousals, your location registers precisely. No disarray, merely a soft realignment. Obscurity contributes. Absent lunar glow or stellar glimmers, familiar references vanish. Duration elongates. Reveries proceed unbroken by light fluctuations. They trace their leisurely paths to completion. You stir not from a vision's close, but from bodily cues demanding repositioning or thermal tweak. You observe how quieter these nighttime tales seem in this place. Not vacant, but tempered. Passion's edge dulls. Scant terror, scant thrill. Rather, they mirror daily cycles of persistence and routine. This parallels the narrowed scope of wintry existence. The thoughts align accordingly. One minor anecdote from grassland memories notes how winter sharers seldom voiced their nocturnal journeys, deeming them unexceptional or unworthy of recount. Such inner travels weren't diversions. They blended as extra strata into the protracted chill, unremarked. You submerge once more, dimly conscious, partially immersed. The divide between repose and awareness blurs gently. If you wanted, your eyes could fully open, but you decide against it. No urgency calls for it. The dugout stays a constant backdrop, even amid reveries. Its walls don't vanish. The roof doesn't rise away. Rather, they linger as subtle guides to your thoughts, never fully visible. Your mind takes the confinement in stride, treating it as ordinary. Warmth shifts once more, redistributed by the fire's gentle labor. That heat seeps into slumber, relaxing sinews and soothing limbs. Visions grow richer, dense, and unhurried. At times, it's unclear if you're truly alert or still adrift in sleep. The line between them carries less weight now. Both realms seem alike in this place, serene and enclosed. Such merging might unsettle elsewhere, but in the cold season, it proves practical. Your thoughts conserve energy by avoiding abrupt transitions. Experts still debate if this pattern of rest reshaped settlers' enduring recollections or inner feelings over time. Proof is sparse, pieced from isolated comments instead of careful studies. History's archives hold many gaps. What endures are subjective glimpses, diverse and intimate. You adjust slightly, enough to sense the ground below and the covering overhead. The touch anchors you. Awareness returns now, sharp and present for a moment. The dugout matches your last memory perfectly. All stays unaltered. Content. You invite drowsiness back. Reveries reassemble, molded by soil and shadow, by hushed cycles and reliable heat. They unfold leisurely. You match their pace. The darkness persists unbroken. Above, snow keeps everything motionless. Below, repose stretches in seamless waves, broken only by soft stirrings that blend into the flow, rather than sever it. You settle into that unbroken rhythm, permitting visions to drift by without pursuit. Here, slumber isn't flight. It's simply one more method of weathering the frost steadily and simply until dawn reclaims you. Dawn doesn't burst in suddenly beneath the earth. It creeps in hesitantly, signaled by minor shifts you sense before any sight. Your body chooses wakefulness, not some glaring beam. The space stays shadowy, the overhead unchanged, the sides retaining their silent form. Still, a difference emerges. You detect it in the atmosphere at first. It's a touch chillier, cleaner, like the evening has sighed its last. Flames dip to their weakest right before first light. That dip of warmth stirs a quiet vigilance. Limbs tense faintly, digits flex. Your breathing grows fuller, inhaling traces of dirt and ash. Eyes part, scanning for illumination out of long habit, despite lessons learned. The scant glow filters indirectly from the outer drifts and the slim gap by the entrance. It won't reveal fine points, but it hints at orientation. Daylight waits just past the barriers. Those in Earth homes frequently noted how dawns seemed shortened, not drawn out. Records from frontier life show that buried quarters postpone the mind's sense of morning. Even with outdoor chores requiring prompt starts, hours didn't align with solar cues. Instead, they hinged on preparedness. You rise gradually, and the chill ground replies at once. The soil has surrendered its stored heat to lower depths, the transfer finished. You draw your wrappings tighter and linger, allowing blood to warm before proceeding. Haste at the outset wastes more than it gains. A companion nearby rouses, attuned to the same cue. No words pass. The dawn declares itself together. One figure uprights, another extends. The shelter stirs collectively, motions restrained to avoid jarring the common atmosphere. You extend toward the heater, deliberate rather than rushed. The metal feels chilled, not iced, yet drained. You set about reviving the blaze, urging dying coals toward revival. This ritual signals daybreak truer than any timepiece. Flames return launches the hours. A keen, enduring note from cold season journals tells of folks gauging sunrise by ember responsiveness. Quick response from the ash meant a merciful night. Stubbornness signaled harsher chill than anticipated. The hearth acted as a ledger, noting what rest overlooked. You feed it wood and observe. Initial flickers emerge, a dim sheen stirred by air and forbearance. With heat rebuilding, the space seems to broaden subtly, as though barriers retreat imperceptibly. Warmth widens the feel of it, not in measure, but in sense. Scholars continue to explore how subterranean life influenced body clocks through extended colds. Certain views hold that postponed daylight threw off innate patterns. Counterpoints propose habits overtook the sun as chief guide. Era writings indicate swift adjustment, with days gauged by duties, not heavens. You find your mind clearing as the fire strengthens. Your morning reflections turn pragmatic, rooted in the here and now. Mindless drifting is rare. Instead, you prioritize the order of chores, stoke the fire, repair the door, come daylight, tackle what's feasible given the skies. This focused mindset brings no tension. It's simply effective. With the stove heating up, the dampness in the air stirs once more. Frost on the walls starts to melt away. The atmosphere circulates with greater ease. Effortlessly, the dugout shifts from a shelter for slumber to a hub of activity. No fanfare involved. Rest and work blend seamlessly without any sharp divide. You cast a look at the entrance, picturing the world outside. Perhaps drifts have buried it shut. Gusts might have sculpted fresh contours in the drifts by dawn. You'll discover the truth shortly. The anticipation holds no worry. Uncovering what's out there has woven itself into your daily rhythm. Period journals from sod house residents often note a subtle custom. Folks pause to listen intently right before unlatching the door. Not out of fear, but to gather hints, whiffs of wind patterns, hints of tempest strength, hush or clamor. Thus, the dugout serves as a quiet observatory prior to venturing forth. As flames intensify, illumination grows a touch brighter, silhouettes soften and realign, features sharpen from mere outlines to clear definition. Eyes connect for a moment. A mutual nod acknowledges the night's safe passage. Words aren't needed to voice it. Enduring demands no fanfare. You rise with caution, extending your limbs gradually to fend off lightheadedness. The atmosphere already seems cozier, less oppressive. Stirring revives the dugout, prompting tiny shifts throughout. Later, you'll hang the bedding to freshen. As temperatures climb, the earthen sides will lose some humidity. The shelter stirs alongside you. Scholars debate whether this subdued dawn ritual soothed or hindered harsh season existence. Certain accounts portray it as soothing, a cushion against relentless elements. Others allude to confusion, days melting into one another. Such perspectives both surface in historical logs. Outcomes hinged on personal disposition and outlook. For you today, the start feels solid. Urgency is absent, yet intent guides the hours. The dugout fulfilled its role overnight. Now it bolsters the coming daylight. You draw one last inhale of the chilly remnants before fully venting the stove. The blaze surges in response. Heat radiates outward. Daybreak pieces itself together incrementally, hushed and unadorned. Beyond the walls, the grassland lies in wait. Within, the space eases you into preparedness. Timing release to match your growing resolve. Harsh season dawns aren't stormed. They're approached with deliberation, step by incremental step, until light claims you at its leisure. The chill reveals itself starkly via your footwear. No need to brave the threshold to gauge the night's toll on them. Their form tells the tale, rigid and warped a bit, where wet hide clashed with sub-zero gusts and yielded poorly. They sit tilted by the entryway, just as placed the evening before, but altered by the night's icy vigil. You bend down deliberately. Abrupt motions early on court vertigo and mishaps. The season brooks no recklessness. Your fingers brush a boot's surface, sensing its stubborn rigidity. What flexed smoothly the prior day now pushes back, etched with frost's imprint in each fold. This comes as no surprise. Homesteaders enduring grassland chills grasp swiftly that shoes were vital assets and potential pitfalls. Winter letters repeatedly underscore the mornings devoured by mere readiness for motion. Footwear required thawing, Digits needed revival. Limbs craved gentle urging over sharp orders. Output kicked off delayed, not from idleness, but because frost insisted on careful bargaining. You draw the boots near the heater, keeping a safe distance. Hasty proximity splits hides. Past mishaps taught you that. Rather, you set them where heat can seep in steadily, restoring pliancy sawn harm. Gloves get similar treatment, spread out with fingers splayed, welcoming the glow. Your gestures carry purpose. Every motion weighs a fraction more than in balmier times. As if your frame still echoes the dark hours, you ease your shoulders in circles. You work your fingers open and shut. Blood flow reasserts itself in phases, prickles at first, followed by comforting heat. This measured revival is now second nature. A quirky, yet vivid routine emerges in grassland recollections, where settlers recount massaging flakes of ice onto iced-over boots prior to thawing, convinced it warded off splits. The method seems peculiar at first glance, but its rationale shines through. Tempered shifts counted, abrupt swings wrecked essentials. You ease a foot into one boot and hold still. The inner layer bites with frigidity, even buffered by heavy wool. You linger, permitting your limbs' own warmth to mellow the chill before advancing. Such forbearance yields rewards. Jammed footwear spells torn stitching and aching soles. You've paid the price for impatience before. While donning layers, you observe the hush persisting in the dugout. Dawn noises stay muted. No rush of frantic bustle echoes. All proceed at an identical measured tempo. The freeze has aligned your paces. Experts diverge on the extent to which frost-induced rigidity curbed everyday output across the grasslands. Certain studies propose that pioneers simply cut back on their working hours during the colder months. Alternative views contend they shifted their duties instead of just pushing harder, prioritizing upkeep and chores inside the home. Accounts from that era highlight adaptability over strict routines as key to enduring the harsh conditions. You tug your second boot fully into place and rise cautiously, gauging your steadiness. The ground beneath seems solid and trustworthy. You advance one foot, then the next, allowing your muscles to recall their rhythm. The chill hasn't robbed you of anything for good. It merely delays your motions. Next, you grasp your coat, sensing its accustomed heft. A subtle aroma of firewood and frost clings to it. You ease your arms through the sleeves and drape it across your frame, fastening each button methodically from the bottom up, embracing the insulation without frenzy. Garments weigh more in the frost. Not in actual mass, but in the mind. Every added piece signifies a duty. Your eyes drift to the entrance, knowing that swinging it open will unleash a fiercer chill, one that's biting and instant. You're not quite set for that. Getting ready takes priority. Venturing out underdressed risks harm. The freeze shows no mercy to recklessness. Homestead journals often note a subtle ritual. Folks would ease into a squat before heading out, verifying that their knees and hips would cooperate if the ground proved treacherous. You bend your legs a bit, then straighten. All parts reply without issue. That's sufficient. Your fingers finally thaw enough to function. You slip on your mittens, bending them until the digits move fluidly. Precision counts over raw power this morning. Implements demand a sure hold. The drifts call for careful decisions. The low temperatures shrink any room for mistakes. You linger a beat longer by the hearth, soaking up the heat while it's convenient. This delay isn't idleness. It's foresight. The season favors those who gear up completely prior to facing the elements. As you head for the threshold, your footwear yields without protest. It flexes where required. Your form aligns once more, methodical yet competent. The dawn hasn't pressed you. It has permitted preparedness to build steadily. You extend a hand to the fastener, composed now, braced for whatever the open land has conjured in the dark hours. The shelter has fulfilled its role. So have you. The icy burden awaits beyond, but it holds no shocks. You advance purposefully, footfalls solid and paced, transporting the coziness ahead instead of abandoning it. The state of the dugout reveals itself through odor before your eyes adjust. It welcomes you upon re-entry, layering fragrances that narrate the night's events silently. Chilled dirt, embers embedded in timber and fabric, humidity clinging in spots where drafts stall. This blend has grown so routine that deviations catch your notice at once. The atmosphere today carries more density than the day prior, not off-putting, but richer. You halt right at the threshold and inhale deliberately, sampling it like you'd assess a stream for potability. An alteration has occurred while you were gone. Maybe the blaze dipped too low, or perhaps condensation built up denser on the ground. Regardless, the structure is communicating, and you've grown adept at heeding it. Those who penned seasonal correspondence frequently describe their homes as initial alerts. Well ahead of mold spots or leaking surfaces, they detected shifts in aroma. A keener edge signaled rising moisture. A musty undertone pointed to inadequate ventilation. Reading these narratives together underscores how finely tuned settlers got to such signals. Unlike the subtle cues in today's insulated dwellings, you deposit your gear and navigate the area unhurriedly, inspecting usual areas on instinct. By the partition where the sleeping arrangements lay, the breeze feels chillier. That indicates dampness hung around there extendedly. You raise a coverlet and give it a soft flick, using the faint heat to evaporate more residue. Even minor actions count. The dirt underfoot wafts a variant scent this morning, too. Soil gives off different notes based on its saturation. Overly arid, it's powdery and bland. Excessively sodden, it turns pungent. At present, it's balanced in the middle. Tolerable, yet deserving vigilance. You resolve inwardly to leave the entrance ajar extendedly later, should the skies permit. A peculiar yet precise custom emerges in select recollections, sprinkling light ashes over soggy floor areas to soak up excess and mask the odor. It created faint streaks that got brushed off when things dried. The method didn't eradicate the issue, but it curbed its advance. You ponder if it suits the conditions now. As the flames reignite, the dugout appears to breathe out. The atmosphere circulates skyward. The bouquet disperses anew. Ember wisps follow their usual route to the flue. This circulation comforts you. Stillness in the air alarms far beyond mere low temperatures. You can pile fuel against the frost. Foul ventilation erodes foundations stealthily. You recall the season's start when every whiff assaulted you, when ground and hearth fumes blanketed your perceptions non-stop. Gradually, your perception refined. What had seemed smothering now serves as guidance. This shift unfolded organically, honed by routine without deliberate push. Historians have long debated the true health risks of spending extended winters in sod dugouts, with no clear consensus emerging. Certain analyses highlight the dangers of respiratory problems stemming from persistent moisture and soot. In contrast, plenty of accounts describe families enduring in these homes for years on end with few major problems. The facts remain elusive, partly due to the broad range of experiences reported. Factors like upkeep, seasonal conditions, and personal endurance all influenced results. You crouch down for a second, pressing your fingertips against the earthen floor. It gives just a bit before resisting. That's a positive sign. If there were flooding, the texture would be much softer. If it were deteriorating, it would crumble easily. This solid resistance indicates the soil is retaining moisture without letting it take over. A tolerable situation. Higher up, close to the roof, the aroma turns warmer and less humid. Since heat ascends, it carries that more pleasant quality along. Rising to your feet, you realize the dugout's odors vary noticeably by elevation. Such layered perception soon turns instinctive. Your choices for seating, sleeping, or storing items hinge on these unseen shifts in air. You recall a neighbor once remarking that sod houses carried a living scent, distinct from the constructed feel of log cabins. Back then, the idea struck you as odd. These days, it rings true. The ground here isn't passive, it engages with your routine. It shifts in response. It signals changes. You rearrange a couple of belongings, nudging the bedding over a touch and tilting one side to encourage circulation underneath. These simple gestures carry a calming rhythm. Action, however minor, eases anxiety. Historical notes from the season often describe folks igniting brief twists of parched herbs or weeds to clear the atmosphere, not for ritual, but as a straightforward refresh. The improvement didn't last, yet it altered the odors just enough to provide comfort. You're skipping that step today. The fire's glow should handle it. As the heat distributes, the overall fragrance mellows. The harsh edges dull. The earth's essence grows fuller, less insistent on your notice. This transformation confirms your instincts were right. The environment is adapting. Scents also evoke the past. Every cold season crafts its unique blend, influenced by storms and routines. In later writings, folks noted how particular aromas could whisk them right back to those buried dwellings long after departing the prairies. Olfactory impressions linger more vividly than visual ones ever could. You settle back into your seat, pausing to draw even breaths. The atmosphere seems navigable once more. It's far from ideal, yet reliable. In the depths of winter, dependability outweighs ease. Academics still grapple with whether such perceptual shifts truly lessen tension or just concealed persistent struggles. One view holds that sharpened senses granted pioneers a sense of mastery. Another posits it acclimated them to grueling realities that exacted unseen costs. The archives accommodate these perspectives, and personal realities probably blended them. Right now, for you, this attentiveness equates to capability. You understand priorities. You grasp what can be postponed. The sod shelter no longer catches you off guard. Through the hours ahead, aromas will evolve further. Preparing meals will introduce fresh elements. Damp garments will infuse their distinct traces. By nightfall, wood smoke will reclaim the foreground. You've come to embrace this rhythm. It's not a flaw to eradicate forever, merely a pattern to navigate each day. You rise and extend your limbs, content that no immediate fixes are needed. The dugout strikes a harmonious note, not spotless, but vital and attuned. That's sufficient. Survival in this wintry existence relies on spotting subtle cues promptly. Odors impart that wisdom subtly. You inhale once more, steadily, before turning to the following chore. assured that your sleeping quarters remain intact, expressive, and equipped to see you through yet another evening. Weariness in winter accumulates subtly. It lacks intensity or flair. It builds gradually, like snow blanketing the landscape over time. You sense it when initiating actions grows sluggish, when your mind clings to routine ideas, when slumber shifts from luxury to essential. The dugout doesn't eradicate exhaustion. It confines it, preventing unchecked expansion. You perch briefly and register its burden in your upper back. Even in stillness, the chill exacts tolls. Your body labors nonstop to generate heat. Your attention tracks minor alterations. Repose transforms into effort, a reward rather than a given. When sickness looms, rest serves as a shield. A lesson prairie dwellers absorb quickly. Winter letters echo a common conviction. Conserving body heat and napping at every chance proved more effective against disease than contemporary cures. Medicines were scarce, antibiotics non-existent. Instead, there was repose, nourishment if obtainable, and unyielding cover. You shift nearer the heater, avoiding any blockage. The radiating coziness unwinds tightness, gradually easing limbs rigid from the dark hours. You draw a full lungful, sensing your torso open freely. This counts. Restricted breaths court hacking fits. Expansive ones promote circulation. Days merge into one another under the weight of weariness. You've come to accept that without resistance. Tracking time by calendar holds little value compared to marking off chores. As long as the flames are kept alive, water remains at hand. And all get fed and bedded down. The hours have served their purpose. The season honors what gets finished, not grand plans. In Tales from the Open Lands, folks often recall snatching quick breaks during daylight hours instead of grinding on through depletion. 10 minutes by the heat. A brief stretch out after strenuous toil. These interludes weren't sloth. They were smart choices. Frames that recharged endured better over time. You ease back onto the pallet for a moment, even as morning stirs. It's not drifting off completely, just a recharge in the gaps. The earth-sheltered home lends itself to such moments. Light stays muted. Silence lingers. It doesn't prod you forward. Experts disagree on the role that ongoing tiredness played in shaping health on the edge of settlement through those endless cold spells. Certain views hold that steady drain sapped defenses against sickness. Counterpoints highlight how settlers dialed back efforts and hoarded strength, blunting the impact. Personal stories from the era show responses differed greatly, depending on provisions, storm fierceness, and personal endurance. Your senses sharpen to the body's warnings these days. Appetite strikes with new clarity. Chill bites differently. Exhaustion sinks in profoundly, yet truthfully. You heed these cues now, brushing them off before led to lost time mending. The cold season drilled in the folly of that error. The shelter itself fits this cadence. It promotes measured steps. The close roof overhead checks abrupt rises. The firm ground underfoot softens jolts. The whole setup gently steers toward efficient action. No one planned it with today's eyes, yet it worked well. Notes from cold weather correspondence preserve another nuance. Lighter duties slotted for twilight hours. Tougher jobs timed for noon when warmth peaked in the limbs. Tasks flowed by vitality, not the clock. Such shifts cut down on wear. You mirror that flow instinctively these days. When sickness approaches, it signals plainly in this place. A hack rings out sharply. Heat turns the atmosphere heavy. Folks kept a close eye on one another, not from dread, but need. Swift action counted, added covers, extended downtime, minimized chills. Support came from the group. You tune into the rhythms of breath nearby. They come even, free of rattles or effort. That steadiness soothes a knot inside. The dark hours didn't claim extra toll. Academics debate if life in these burrowed homes raised or lowered chances of ailment versus other border dwellings. Clues suggest moisture-fueled lung troubles. Others indicate the earth buffer cut down on weather-borne ills. The past stays fuzzy, pieced from spotty logs and diverse setups. You recognize no havens flawless. The key lies in reaction. When weariness builds, you halt. When threat looms, you hunker deeper. This home permits such shifts. It expects no nonstop grind. You extend once more, sensing rigidity yield. Limbs protest at first, then yield. That partnership seems hard won. The frost has peeled back any notion of boundless drive. What's left is steadier footing, mindfulness. Spring crosses your mind now and then. Extended light, easier loads. The idea comforts but stays remote. The now demands attention, not foresight. Gazing too forward burdens the present. You turn to what's doable at hand and what can hold off. The blaze persists in its steady task. Heat creeps outward, shy of drenching, sufficient to limber the frame. Perspiration in the freeze spells trouble. You sidestep it by feel, throttling back even as vigor stirs. Logs from the wilds observe how sleep stretched longer through the chill without shame. They knew sun and stamina were scarce. Repose wasn't excess. It built reserves. You grant yourself that leeway too. As hours find their groove, tiredness fades to hum rather than barrier. You move with it, not battling. The dugout backs this way, providing spots to halt as required. No words needed. Researchers split on if this seasonal tempo showed grit or giving in. Some call it savvy adjustment. Others read it as hemmed-in endurance. Reality probably blends the pair, making it through needed yielding as much as push. For you this morning, measured steps ring true. You attend to flesh and form. No rush bears down. Nothing gets overlooked. Equilibrium persists. You stand when the moment fits. Smooth motion, calm inhalations. Lingering drain lingers, yet it no longer endangers. It's woven into the winter weave now, noted and worked around, not dreaded. The sod home stays hushed as you turn to the following duty. Winter presses on. You move alongside it, pausing to recover as required, laboring when strength allows, confident that this steady pace will guide you through yet another frigid day and a tolerable evening. Here, the young rest in a way that's distinct. You observe it each evening, and in those still hours just before sunrise, as grown-ups shift with caution and rouse without effort. The children plunge wholly into slumber, their forms weighted and cozy, respiration profound and serene. The season poses no such riddles to them as it does to you. It offers no bargains. It merely descends upon them, and they yield without resistance. Nearby, a compact figure stirs faintly, then composes itself once more, eyes staying shut, arms and legs intertwined, seeking shared heat. A coverlet drifts aside, and another hand draws it back instinctively, lids unmoving. This subtle dance repeats endlessly, absorbed through mere practice. The youth grasped the essence of sod dwelling by dozing within its confines. Family correspondence from the plains often highlights how swiftly the kids acclimated to this life, outpacing their elders. They griped far less over the gloom, the chilled earth beneath, or the tight quarters. To them, the dugout wasn't a step down from finer digs. It was merely their dwelling. Perceptions mold ease far more than surroundings ever might. You remark how the little ones exhale more boldly while dreaming, not labored, merely open. They haven't acquired the hushed watchfulness that the cold imparts to the grown. Their faith runs absolute. The sod shelter endures. Those close by persist. A flame flickers somewhere inside. That's sufficient. One recurring, faintly endearing trait crops up in various accounts of the season. Youngsters demanding spots nearest the heater, despite grown-ups' efforts to relocate them for caution's sake. Heat drew them like a force of nature. Caregivers relented, forging flexible barriers instead of strict edicts. Mere endurance permitted such give and take. You recall how, earlier in the months, evenings dragged due to unease, every odd noise calling for scrutiny. The young slumbered right through those hours, free from such strain. They emerged refreshed, whereas elders stirred vigilant. That gap defined the dawn. The children stirred earliest, vitality untouched, as adults mustered themselves at a gentler pace. Certain scholars debate if the youngsters genuinely thrived under these rigors, or if reminiscences later blurred the difficulties. The records that endure don't resolve it neatly. Narratives capture both striking endurance and glimpses of fragility. What's evident is how the young frequently echoed the mood projected by their parents. Serenity bred serenity. You temper your motions in the dark, in part for their sake. Abrupt sounds unsettle the small ones more profoundly than the large. An alarmed child rouses bewildered, chilled, adrift. You've come to avert that wherever you can. Stillness safeguards all, yet it shields the tender most. By daylight, the children engage the sod house otherwise. They probe its boundaries. They flatten palms against the earthen sides. They track motes dancing in the lantern glow. They inquire where the roof merges with the soil below. Come evening, that inquisitiveness fades. Repose seizes them utterly. Yet another nugget from seasonal reminiscences notes the young fashioning cushions from bundled garments or extra bags, unconcerned with form or loft. Ease boiled down to basics. Heat and nearness outweighed plushness or evenness. You perceive it as innate shrewdness now. You see how the children huddle nearer in rest than elders prefer. They bunch effortlessly, pooling warmth on instinct. Such grouping relegates adults to the peripheries, where chills infiltrate first. Resentment finds no place. Safeguarding radiates from the core. Scholars diverge on whether sod life etched enduring mental traces on the young. Certain views hold it bred flexibility and grit amid trials. Others contend it habituated them to scarcity, though archives yield snippets over verdicts colored by afterthought and context. For you, beholding their repose, it seems more straightforward. The young draw from steadiness. While patterns endure and dread lies hushed, they surrender to sleep. The sod structure delivers that reliability more surely than canvas tents or fleeting camps. You ease a coverlet into place and sense the heat shift evenly. A tiny fist clenches, then loosens. No stirring, no objection. Slumber stays profound. Such tranquility strikes as invaluable. The young also emerge from rest in their own manner. They rise gradually, extending limbs, fluttering lashes, greeting the light without critique. Chill doesn't irk them. Shadow doesn't baffle them. These are mere states, not burdens. Elders harbor recollections of other ways too vividly for such detachment. You heed their rhythms once more and sense a loosening within. Their peace signifies triumph beyond any tally. If the little ones slumber soundly, the darkness proved merciful. As the sod home quiets anew, you draw grounding from their unwavering nearness. The winter hasn't robbed their ease. That counts as a win, unspoken though it goes. Slumber eases back over you, drawn by their peaceful breathing. The sod walls encircle your group like a protective shell. The roof stays firm overhead. Flames flicker steadily as the kids rest soundly, no fuss from them, making the darkness seem less daunting. You slip into sleep once more, relying on this collective quiet to pull you all through the next icy spell, night by quiet night. Nights with storms drag on far beyond their actual length. You sense it right away when the shadows deepen again, heavier and more intent than before. The structure doesn't shudder or clatter. Rather, it soaks up the fury overhead, cradling it near, converting fury into a steady weight and hush. You stay motionless, allowing the noises to filter through in their muted version. Here, the gusts don't scream, they bear down. Flurries don't crash with sound, they pile up. While the landscape beyond shifts and settles, you hunker safe below, conscious yet shielded. When you stack up the old winter tales side by side, a subtle trend surfaces. Blizzards stuck in memory more for their endless span than their clamor. Folks chronicled the vigil more than the battle, gauging the trial by hours trapped indoors over the roar outside. Such homes transform tempests into lessons in endurance. You detect the atmosphere shifting as the breeze veers. Tension mounts against one side, then releases. The overhead layer creaks faintly and shortly as the load settles anew. You know this sound without hesitation. It's no threat, just the ground adapting, soil yielding to the skies, as it ever does. The toughest aspect of these wild evenings isn't dread. It's the immobility. Action seems pointless. Even stirring Woolson and Wood would squander energy needlessly. You've come to hoard your strength, allowing the shelter to bear the load while you contribute almost nothing. Sinews stay taut and primed, yet idle. An odd, targeted survival tactic surfaces just a handful of times in gritty survival journals. Settlers shoving additional items up against the inner barriers in gales, not for warmth, but for comfort. A chest, a cask, anything hefty to lean into the dirt. The move served both body and mind. You flatten your hand to the barrier now, sensing its solidness. Unlike timber, turf doesn't quiver. It holds still, thick, and immediate. That touch grounds you beyond what eyes could achieve. Blizzards probe faith, too. You count on the top to endure, on the drifts to buffer instead of bury, on the hearth to persist despite shifting airs. Such confidence came from trial, not birthright. Initial evenings passed in hyper-alert eavesdropping, poised to leap at any creak. Gradually, familiarity blunted the sharpness. The past's broad view splinters at this point, refusing to cohere. Certain stories paint gale evenings as soothing, almost snug. The burrow bundled snug versus the wild. Others cast them as draining, laced with fitful dozes and perpetual alertness. Both ring true because both happened. You observe sleep arriving in fragments these days. It pulls you under, lets you bob up, pulls again. Not from racket, but from thoughts lingering loosely alert. This isn't alarm. It's watchfulness honed to a whisper. You adjust a bit, warmth flowing to follow. Nearby forms mirror the move, tuning to shifts in weight and chill without full rouse. The confined area evolves as one. Silence reigns. Words aren't required. One more note in blizzard lore, tallying blows by meals skipped, not minutes ticked. When fire building halted since venturing out felt impossible, clocks faded away. Appetite and heat set the soul pace. You tune in once more and grasp how totally the powder has stifled everything. Gusts, even weary of their rage, easing to a persistent nudge over relentless barrage. The hovel's outline blurs now, contours blurred under buildup. No clear verdict exists on whether drawn-out blizzard lockdown spiked tension or granted downtime in the frosty season. Some traces point to quick cabin itch. Others suggest a breather from toil. The debate lingers unresolved, mostly since responses varied so much. And for you this evening, the hush seems endurable, maybe inviting. No tasks press, no duties demand. The season has bolted the exit for you. You ease your breaths to sync with the calmer pulse of the gale beyond. The shelter keeps its form. Barriers don't inch inward. The top stays put as ever. Powder keeps heaping atop, weighing softly, bolstering the barrier. Chill lingers keepably remote. Embers smolder softly, indifferent to the chaos past its glow. You ponder for a moment the dawn chore of excavating and recarving the entry. The idea doesn't weigh on you. That labor fits tomorrow. Right now, the tempest has shrunk existence to this sealed haven and those inside it. This constriction limits options and, oddly enough, eases anxiety in the process. You sink further into your makeshift bed, surrendering to sleep once more, confident that the sod dugout has endured tempests like this in the past. It will endure this one as well. Overhead, the wind and snow persist in their gradual dialogue with the open plains. Underground, you lie within the soil, embracing patience as the deepest darkness of night slips away without resistance. In winter, solace arrives in fragments so subtle they nearly go undetected. Tonight, you sense it clearly, not precisely as heat, but as a posture that eases the tug on your shoulder at last, or the hem of a cover that wards off a chill adequately. The instant the stove yields a touch more warmth than anticipated. In gentler times, such trifles wouldn't catch anyone's eye. Yet here, they seem bountiful. You move with caution and find that the bundle of garments beneath your side has molded into a more supportive form. An earlier annoyance has transformed into aid. You have no recollection of repositioning it. Your body handled the fix in that hazy border between wakefulness and slumber. This is the subtle way relief often emerges these days, unannounced and effortless. A closer look at settlers' winter diaries reveals they seldom described ease in grand declarations. Instead, they noted shifts for the better or worse compared to the prior evening. Progress outweighed flawlessness. A rest unbroken by frequent stirrings marked a victory. Awakening free of aches seemed a boon. You feel a parallel appreciation stirring within you. The dugout remains chilly. The ground still leaches away heat. The roof hangs close. Still, the enclosure now seems manageable. That shift holds weight. You cease yearning for it to be different and attend instead to its strengths. In several accounts, a minor custom emerges, folks clutching a single cherished item through the night, solely for the sense of security it offered. An unread volume, a well-worn implement, a fragment of fabric from a distant place. These possessions brought no insulation or protection. They offered continuity. Without conscious thought, You do the same now, touching one briefly before releasing it. Ease also stems from what one can anticipate. You understand the night's progression. The flames will die down. The frost will creep forward gradually before pulling back. The breaths nearby will grow steady and profound. Disruptions are improbable. This certainty calms the thoughts more than any covering could. You reflect on the makeshift nature of life here. Sleeping arrangements carved from the dirt, furnishings pieced together from what withstood the trek westward, solace crafted from scraps rather than bought. Settlement chronicles highlight how swiftly inhabitants adapted sparse resources into habitable spaces. Hardship hones ingenuity. You tug the covering anew and catch a faint trace of summer sunlight in the material, overlaid with hints of hearth smoke and fleece. The aroma catches you off guard. It evokes a fleeting sense of balminess without stirring regret. That equilibrium proves vital, a recollection that soothes yet doesn't pull focus. One more nuance captured in those old winter correspondences. Individuals hoarding their plushest belongings for evening hours, accepting daytime unease in trade. A frayed wrap, a tattered coverlet. Solace was doled out with purpose, saved for crucial moments. Scholars have long debated if these minor indulgences truly bolstered spirits through endless cold spells. Some dismiss them as insignificant amid broader trials. Others contend they sustained resolve by averting hopelessness. The records tilt toward this view, though interpretations stay measured. Folks recalled these modest kindnesses with sharp clarity. You observe the sod house's reaction to quietude. With no motion, the temperature holds steady. The atmosphere stills. The area demands less. Here, relief is typically a shared accomplishment. All play a part by avoiding needless disruption. You recall past evenings spent pursuing ease, fidgeting excessively, tweaking endlessly, thwarting any chance for heat to build. Those stretched on interminably. Time has shown you how to spot when sufficiency has arrived. Further tinkering would unravel the gains. The hearth emits a gentle sigh as the iron cools evenly. Once mere clatter, it now signals tranquility. The setup has found equilibrium. No adjustments required. Solace also arises from proportion. The dugout's modesty ensures your role counts. Your body warmth registers. Your respiration adds to the whole. In vast rooms, heat scatters and labor seems futile. In this confined spot, each minor contribution resonates. That awareness steadies you. A peculiar ritual from one lone account details a person warming rocks for their toes overnight, swapping them out as they lost heat to prolong the benefit. Though cumbersome, the approach uncovers a key truth. Folks back then viewed comfort not as an endless goal, but as something to ration and sustain carefully. That idea brings a subtle grin to your face as you draw your feet in tighter, improvising your own take on the approach. Heat spreads more evenly, and your muscles loosen even more. Historians still debate if these makeshift aids really boosted overall health in the long run. A few claim they just dulled the sense of hardship without easing the body's actual burdens. Counter-arguments hold that mindset alone played a key role, influencing toughness and choices under pressure. The accounts don't resolve it definitively, yet personal encounters point to a tight bond between outlook and stamina. You're sensing that connection right here. Ease hasn't wiped out the challenges, it simply renders them bearable. That nuance counts for a lot. It prevents the thoughts from twisting every minor discomfort into a crisis. Your shoulders ease back into the bedding, and the earth beneath seems less unyielding than before. Maybe the soil has thawed a touch, or perhaps your frame has adapted. Either way, the outcome holds steady. Beyond the walls, the season grinds on at its deliberate pace. Within, you've pieced together a modest haven of relief from odds and ends, routines, and focus. It won't endure indefinitely. You're aware of that truth. But endurance isn't the point. It just has to bridge the gap until sleep can settle in. You cease the tinkering and let quiet take over from there. What ease exists drapes over you like a sparse yet adequate covering. Far from opulent, nowhere near total. Slumber returns smoothly, unopposed. You slip away, holding on to a calm contentment that even amid a prairie sod dugout in the heart of winter, relief can emerge in humble ways. If you spot it in the right places and recognize when to quit searching. Gradually, the dugout shifts from mere shelter to something more alive, almost companion-like. You sense it through its subtle reactions to your habits, not with flair, but steadily, as though it's adapting with you. The walls take on deeper shades, where forms huddle through endless evenings. The ground wears smoother along the paths trod most. The very atmosphere attunes to your usual patterns. You rouse with that realization nestled deep within. The place seems alert as well, not stirring, but poised. It has withstood the chill, the gales, the drawn-out hours of collective breathing. In exchange, it has yielded to tweaks and been shaped by them. Dwelling in such a spot transforms mere protection into a kind of bond. Scrutinizing those old winter journals side by side uncovers a recurring theme that transcends building techniques. Folks frequently portrayed their dugouts as having their own character, some as obstinate, others as lenient. Such descriptions weren't tossed off casually. Routine engagement eroded the divide between thing and surroundings. You lay your hand flat on the wall, meeting its steady pushback. A bit chilly, a hint of moisture, solid enough to rely on. This barrier soaks in warmth, echoes, dampness, and hours, shifting its replies to tempests versus calm evenings. You've grown attuned to its subtle shifts unspoken. The dugout evolves quietly based on your handling. Nurture fosters steadiness. Oversight breeds minor issues that creep up unnoticed. This pattern grew plain to survivors of multiple seasons. Vigilance outweighed raw power every time. A quirky offhand custom pops up in certain accounts, where inhabitants would voice words to their dwellings amid chores. Not quite invocations or quips, but simple nods of recognition, a phrase uttered during a repair, a remark grumbled as embers were stirred. The words didn't alter the build, but they reshaped the dynamic. Closeness supplanted antagonism. You grasp that urge these days, realizing that repeated safeguarding sparks thanks, even unspoken. The dugout has secured your confidence through reliability. It rarely catches you off guard. When surprises arise, warnings come soon. The ground underfoot carries a new texture today, a touch more solid than last. The frost has pulled dampness inward through the dark hours. You pick up on it right away. Such signs hint at a crisp day ahead, at minimum indoors. Tiny cues like these steer your actions without deliberate thought. Scholars remain divided on whether settlers genuinely saw these earth homes as animated realms, or if hindsight gilded bare survival. Certain views posit that wording tempered trials in retrospect. Alternatives highlight how period correspondence already held this flavor, implying the outlook was immediate and authentic. The proof doesn't align tidily for your mind. The divide seems beside the point. Utility is what endures. The dugout acts reliably. It shifts with climate, fire, motion. You respond accordingly. This back and forth builds rapport, and rapport eases dread. You observe the room's varying vibe, hollow when vacant versus packed. With all gathered, heat clings tighter. Currents shift in the air. The space grows thick and enclosed. As folks depart, the chill sets in rapidly, reverting to a balanced equilibrium. The dwelling retains a memory of those who occupied it. Among the winter memories preserved, one notes how individuals deliberately abandon minor items upon heading out for the day, as though staking a claim on ongoing habitation. A seat positioned at a particular tilt, a mug positioned beside the heater. Such actions served both functional and emblematic purposes. The sod house stood unoccupied, yet expectant. Instinctively, you tidy a couple of items, reinstating the customary arrangement. In this confined area, structure holds significance. Chaos in tight quarters heightens tension. A reliable configuration soothes the thoughts. You recognize the proper spots for all. And the enclosure does too. The dugout molds your actions as well. You proceed with caution to conserve heat from abrupt motions. Voices remain hushed since clamor serves no purpose. Strategies unfold in modest increments as the limited area promotes gradual progress. Gradually, these patterns persist outside its confines. Enduring the season transforms your wiring. Experts still argue over whether this surroundings impact left enduring marks on pioneers' mindset. Certain views hold it cultivated endurance and moderation. Alternative perspectives claim it bred surrender. Reality probably rests in a middle ground, where adjustment might resemble one or the other based on conditions. You settle into stillness, sensing the sod house enveloping you once more. No creaks emerge, no alterations occur. The enclosure conveys solidity. Or perhaps the utmost fellowship. It requires no focus. It never pulls away its backing. You perceive that the dugout has shed its transient nature. Despite awareness that this may not be a lifelong home, the area has secured enduring stability within your psyche. It has guarded you across sufficient evenings to integrate into your core notion of security. Through the viewport, the season persists in molding the grasslands. Within the sod house, it maintains form, reacting gradually and reliably. Such reliability outweighs ease or appeal. It permits repose free of watchfulness. You inhale steadily, noting the atmosphere circulating as anticipated. The heater anticipates its forthcoming maintenance. The barriers await their subsequent tweaks. All stands appropriately situated. At present, the dugout transcends mere refuge for utilization. It represents a domain you comprehend. This comprehension instills a serene assurance, the sort enabling profound slumber and composed awakenings. You permit that assurance to take root while readying for the day's remainder, assured that dusk's return will find the sod house unaltered in essential respects, prepared to cradle you through yet another phase of grassland chill. The shift registers instantly upon re-entering after glimpsing a timber dwelling close by. Here, the atmosphere seems denser, more constant. Noises cease propagating distantly. Your posture relaxes unbidden. Such contrasts arise subtly, devoid of critique, merely from having known each. Lumber structures rise higher. They evoke expansiveness. Panes, edges, contours. Externally, they symbolize advancement. Internally, amid the frost, Their conduct varies. Timber permits frost to infiltrate swifter. Gusts exploit gaps with ease. Surfaces float over iced soil instead of pressing into it. All appears somewhat more vulnerable. Reflecting on pioneers' selections between soil and wood, actions reveal more than views. In timber-poor regions, sod proved essential. Where logs transported via tracks or carts, lumber edifices ensued. A steady thread in colonization trends reveals that inhabitants frequently initiated with sod houses, even intending wooden upgrades afterward. Soil offered promptness. Wood embodied ambition. You recall once within a neighboring shack, observing illumination flowing unbound, volume appearing amplified. Yet you also recall the breeze skimming the baseboards and barriers reacting keenly to gusts. Wood retorted to the elements. Soil quelled them. Re-entering the sod house, the disparity resonates in your frame. The enclosures hug nearer, yet remain immobile. The climate sustains uniformity. The domain forgoes vows of luxury. It delivers reliability, which surpasses visual perfection in extended frosts. A minor, somewhat amusing anecdote arises in select recollections, recounting individuals yearning for their sod houses post-relocation to completed abodes. They griped over reverberations, over undue vulnerability, over fitful rest for days. The fresh dwellings offered superior heat by certain standards, yet seemed alien. Ease failed to migrate right away. You grasp this presently. Subsurface existence conditions the form to anticipate specific responses. Compression over vibration, quietude over oscillation. When those cues vanish, repose turns shallow. Confidence demands reconstruction. Historians leave unresolved the matter of which edifice excelled in winter conditions. Certain analyses prefer lumber for aridity and sustained vitality. Others highlight sod houses for unmatched insulation in severe lows. Existing records tug bidirectionally, influenced by weather diversity, build standards, and individual endurance. You press your hand to the sod wall once more, sensing its solid reliability. Timber, by contrast, gives way slightly. It groans under pressure. Soil remains steadfast and voiceless. That stillness commands respect. Sod homes required distinct routines. Dampness couldn't be overlooked. Airflow demanded vigilance. In timber structures, such concerns lingered undetected, emerging only after harm had set in. With earth, issues revealed themselves promptly via odors, shifts in heat, or changes in feel. This prompted swift action, preventing escalation. One settler's brief note recalls stacking sod along the exterior of a frame, dwelling during a harsh winter, curbing air leaks and mimicking earthen insulation. The method proved so effective that locals adopted it too. Ultimately, substance outweighed type. The dugout has altered your sense of what to expect these days. Advancement no longer means elevation or illumination for you. Instead, it signifies dependability. A reliable haven fades from your thoughts over time. That relief proves invaluable in winters already fraught with endless decisions. Timber homes groan through the dark hours. Each breeze proclaims its presence. Every fluctuation in the air brings noise. For certain folks, those sounds offered comfort. For others, they frayed sleep. Earthen shelters maintain near total hush. Such quietness turns into an asset, not a void. Examining actions in the cold months rather than mere opinions reveals a telling trend. Folks tended to slumber longer and more soundly in dugouts. Though daily labors might take them above ground, evenings drew them back below for undisturbed repose. Practical needs guided them, not abstract beliefs. You settle in again, noting how swiftly the coziness returns. The ground pulls in heat gradually, yet retains it. Surfaces cling to whatever warmth they absorb. The roof ignores the gales beyond. This equilibrium seems hard-won, not merely assured. Historians debate if these dugouts marked a stopgap measure or a purposeful fit for grassland life. Certain views hold they were ditched at the first chance. Counter-arguments highlight their prolonged use, even with superior options at hand. Records resist fitting into one tidy story. Winter reshuffles what counts most in your thoughts. Aridity holds weight. Heat endures. Stillness persists. Aesthetics take a back seat. Prestige diminishes. Mere endurance refines preferences. Timber homes signaled settlement. Sod ones embodied tenacity. Each played its part. Each suited its time. Enduring the chill sharpens focus on essential traits when options dwindle. A homesteader's recollection notes stashing prized implements and provisions in dugouts long after shifting to wood, relying on soil over boards to guard against frost and pilfering. Confidence endured where proof had built it. You mentally map the coming day, appreciating the dugout's straightforwardness. You anticipate where heat will gather. You foresee where chill will cling. You gauge how long the blaze will last. Such foresight streamlines preparation. Timber abodes, however, called for endless adjustments to gusts, warping panels, and protesting timbers. Upkeep was perpetual. Soil needed care as well, but it allowed leeway for minor postponements, reacting more gradually. Whether frame or sod truly conferred more honor stays unresolved. Proponents claim wood revived routine and ambition. Detractors posit true worth in function over form. In winter, honor might just mean dozing unafraid. You recline, sensing the dugout's unyielding grip. Debates dissolve. Selection loses meaning amid evident results. This spot suffices for the evening. It doesn't tease visions of improvement. It invites repose. Out on the plains, frame houses rise starkly against the drifts. Within these softened confines, outlines fade, boundaries ease, and darkness unfolds unbroken. You shut your eyes, aware that the season heeds little of icons. It yields to laws of matter, enduring resolve, and watchful care. Soil meets those needs adeptly. Slumber returns, buoyed by the sure assurance that this modest refuge grasps the essence of winter profoundly, cradling you through its trials. Dread creeps in another way after dark. It doesn't storm through. It eases in gently, persistently, probing if you'll detect it or nurture it. Awareness dawns once shadows thicken, the sod home falls utterly still, and thoughts roam freely. All stays as before, yet proximity stirs. You remain motionless, attuned. The noises ring true, nearby breaths, the stove's faint ticks, the roof bearing its load. No cause for panic exists, and that certainty anchors you. Here, unease seldom stems from instant peril. It arises when fancy probes the unseen void. You recall prior evenings when odd sounds gripped your breath. A rustle in the snow might mimic a crumbling structure. A far-off thud could signal an unwanted visitor. Over time, such instincts dulled through familiarity. Habit trained your instincts to discern real threats from mere echoes. Serenity, you've discovered, involves elements of practice. Scanning back through those chilly memories reveals a notable pattern. Accounts from the eerie rarely dwelled on outright panic, favoring descriptions of subtle discomfort instead. The vast plain didn't instill perpetual dread. It stirred a persistent disquiet. Endless nights, solitude, and sameness carved room for the mind to wander. Anxiety typically trailed idleness more than peril. You observe how the dugout itself tempers that disquiet. Its confined quarters curb fear's wild growth. There's scant space for it to balloon unchecked. The earthen barriers confine stray ideas, just as they trap heat within. Even flights of fancy find limits in this place. A modest, intimate note emerges in certain diaries, folks drifting off with fingers pressed to something sturdy nearby. A hammer's grip, a timber support, or the barrier itself. That tactile link provided solace via feel, bypassing reason. You rest your hand on the wall at this moment, sensing its unyielding reply. Anxiety also ebbs as daily patterns take command. You're aware of the rhythm ahead. The flames will glow steady. The chill will edge closer, then pull away. Dawn will break plainly. Such foreseeability saps fear's drive. Historians still debate the toll of solitary cold season existence on emotional fortitude across the grasslands. Certain views claim prolonged shadows, amplified worries, and isolation. Counterpoints insist that habits and communal quarters mitigated those strains well. The records that endure back up either side, varying by family numbers, labor demands, and personal disposition. You adjust your position, warmth shifting with you. The motion grounds you in your physical self. Anxiety weakens its grip when bodily awareness overrides mental churn. Your inhales grow fuller, the air flowing as anticipated. Beyond, the plain stays shrouded, yet you've mapped its contours solidly enough to picture it true, not disastrously. The land lies level, breezes flow constant, no shadows prowl as dread might imply. Knowledge supplants guesswork. A minor custom flickers in recollections of wintry unease, murmuring everyday duties under one's breath, tallying jobs, scheming fixes. The thoughts anchor to the tangible. You catch yourself at it inwardly, running through tomorrow's duties. The routine evens your keel. It dawns on you that dread in this realm seldom ties to bare existence. It's linked to duty, to grasping how errors exact a steeper price in the frost. Such insight hones feelings, yet it needn't rule them. The dugout aids by curbing inputs. Obscurity mutes sights. Quiet strips away diversions. The residue proves handleable. Dread can't rival the constant footing of barriers, ground, and respiration. Experts continue to puzzle over whether this setting curbed fear via habituation or just blunted reactions through endless routine. Untangling growth from desensitization proves tricky in old writings. Folks didn't frame their experiences with today's mind science lingo. They noted evenings that waned and days that dawned. To you, that split seems scholarly hair-splitting. The key point is dread no longer steers your actions. It might flicker and withdraw. It won't rob you of rest for long. No alarm blares, no urge to stir overrides. You lean harder into the wall, its chill anchoring you. Soil doesn't flinch at worries. It stays impartial and firm. That detachment soothes. It doesn't echo back your flutters. The shelter holds steady. No alterations, no breaches. That very stillness bolsters you beyond any deliberate guard. Dread wanes when ignored. It slips off soundlessly, trading strain for vigilant calm. You're watchful for necessities, yet loose enough for repose. Your fingers drop to the covering, easing into quiet once more. The enclosure feels known, trustworthy. The evening lifts its weight. Slumber reclaims you effortlessly. Ideas blur. Shadow turns impartial anew. Mere void sans glow, not a lurking menace. Out there, the season plods on, heedless of your fleeting stir. Within, you recline in a haven that has shown you to spot dread without yielding to it. A truth absorbed gradually, evening by evening, until it weaves into your nightly unwind. Routine enables repose, not mere ease or bravery, but the subdued chain of motions you enact nightly, till the form senses security sans prompts. This strikes you as you ease back, marking the scant deliberation it now demands. Limbs position instinctively, coverings align, breathing eases naturally. Each phase runs automatic. Such reflections hark back to those initial evenings when every step seemed tentative. These days, habit propels you onward. You inspect the flames, fasten the entrance, and position the covers in their usual configuration. These motions cue your frame to unwind. Examining winter practices among various frontier homes reveals a common thread emerging subtly. Folks didn't count on chance or spontaneity for sound slumber. They depended on regularity. Nightly chores unfolded in identical sequence, evening after evening, to the point where any variation stirred unease. Steadiness supplanted watchfulness. As you recline, your form acknowledges this juncture. Tension eases faster than in the past. Your torso relaxes. Inhalations grow fuller. You've conditioned yourself to repose right here. Following this precise ritual amid these specific circumstances, a peculiar yet sensible tradition surfaces in various accounts, where individuals resisted modifying evening rituals even in crises, barring dire necessity. Embers were covered identically. Linens were set out uniformly. Reliability grounded rest amid mounting doubt. You grasp that innate drive today. Alteration demands vitality. You tilt your head a touch, settling it into the bedding's indentation. Your physique molds itself across weeks of habit. That contour suits you perfectly now. It wasn't there at winter's onset. It developed slowly, molded by your mass and persistence. The earthen shelter has adapted to you, mirroring how you've adapted to it. Scholars debate the extent to which these patterns arose deliberately versus organically via experimentation. Certain views hold that pioneers deliberately imposed discipline to foster order. Others posit that fatigue rendered uniformity unavoidable. Regardless, the outcome aligned. Evenings turned bearable via framework. You observe your minimal stirring after positioning yourself. At the season's start, you fidgeted endlessly, seeking heat. These days you understand and cease. Shifting interrupts the rhythm you've built. Calmness sustains it. The hearth reacts in accustomed manners, a gentle crackle, a subtle radiance, no surprises. You avert your gaze from it. Faith in it stems from its reliable conduct over countless nights. Confidence builds from regularity, not optimism. One minor trait woven into tales of cold season recall involves arranging the following day's attire in fixed layout each evening, despite cramped quarters. This practice cut dawn disarray and averted needless motion during the chilliest times. You perform it instinctively, sorting clothes by feel instead of vision. Your respiration eases amid the dugout's hush. Noises fade to the periphery. Reflections focus on the now. Habit curbs mind's meandering, much like barriers confine the body. Each offers safeguard. Academics still contend over if these inflexible customs hampered flexibility or bolstered it. One perspective claims unyielding patterns rendered folks fragile amid shifts. Counterviews maintain robust habits, liberated cognitive resources for real threats. Evidence illustrates instances of each, hinging on the routine's true pliability. For you, this pattern brings solace, not confinement. It eliminates choices after arduous days. No deliberations arise. You tread a trail that's already validated itself. The sod dwelling attunes to this foreseeability. With chores in standard progression, ventilation acts as anticipated. Warmth distributes consistently. Dampness relocates foreseeably. The area grows simpler to handle since unknowns diminish. You recall earlier winter evenings laced with doubt over every move. Was the blaze too low? The portal too loose? The covers insufficient? Such queries drained you beyond the freeze's toll. Habit resolved them sans contention. As drowsiness nears, no urge surfaces to recap the day or foresee the dawn. Those musings fit other realms where darkness serves a tighter role. Replenish vigor, retain heat, stay vigilant just sufficiently to react if required. You allow your eyelids to shut completely, unlike the partial veil of before. That subtle shift counts. It conveys assurance. The dugout merits it via reliability. Beyond, the season persists in its enduring labor. Within, pattern endures firm. No tweaks beckon, nothing clamors for notice. Repose glides in effortlessly, born by practices honed beyond conscious toil. Your frame eases into rest's accustomed groove, aware precisely of its spot and the sequence ahead. You slip toward slumber once more, steered not by wish or dread, but by recurrence, honed to reflex. In the prairie sod hut come winter, repose proves feasible, not due to mild elements, but because they're familiar. Deep winter bears a distinct burden. You sense it prior to articulating it, a density born not solely of frost, but of its prolonged grip. Evenings elongate not from added gloom, but from a profounder weariness. Endurance builds in stages, and you're navigating the deepest one right now. You rest motionless, tuning into the dugout's rhythms, every creak and whisper now etched into your awareness. The stove cools with a faint sigh. The earthen walls hold firm without a murmur. The weight of snow overhead barely registers anymore, no longer jolting you with its presence or motion. What used to demand constant vigilance has slipped into the ordinary hum of existence. This routine isn't quite solace, it's proficiency, hard-earned. Examining tales of enduring winter across the northern plains reveals a pattern. The true trial seldom hit with the initial blizzard or the bitterest chill. Instead, it dragged on in those closing weeks, when provisions dwindled, tempers frayed, and thaw hovered tantalizingly distant. The tail end of winter probed determination with a subtler grind than the raw onset of suffering. Your frame senses the toll as well. Slumber arrives, but weighted down. Stirring to consciousness drags out. Limbs protest not just from the freeze, but from the endless cycle. You've repeated this ritual night after night. Flesh recalls the grind even as your thoughts seek respite. You shift just a bit, and the ground beneath yields with its known solidity. No fresh aches demand fixing, only the old ones handled routinely once more. This sets late winter apart. Drama has ebbed. All that's left is the slow accumulation. A poignant note echoes in several accounts from winter's close, where folks tallied days in reverse once they sensed spring nearing, not from faith in the skies, but from a craving for momentum. That tallying forged a false sense of advance amid the stagnant freeze. You draw breath steadily, sensing the air respond predictably. Dampness persists. Heat lingers in pockets. The dugout hasn't deteriorated, it's merely persisted. Such steadfastness exacts a steeper price than the frantic early phase. Historians debate endlessly if this phase bred more mental wear than the furious early blasts. Certain views highlight fatigue and hopelessness. Others argue that growing skill eased the burden gradually. The records pull both ways, molded by personal perspective and luck. For you this evening, the pressure simmers low, not piercing. Fear doesn't grip you. Discomfort hardly nags. You're just conscious of how much the season has already extracted. That consciousness supplants worry. The dugout mirrors this phase too. Its walls bear shadowed stains from countless evenings. Your covers mold to the imprint of habit. The atmosphere itself seems aged, bearing traces of time alongside the humidity. Nothing about it looms as hostile. It feels inhabited, deeply so. Late winter correspondence often reveals a subtle trait, postponing minor fixes until thaw. Not laziness, but careful allocation of strength. Priorities sharpened when resources ebbed. Not all flaws cried out for instant mending. You recline now, guided by that shrewd discernment. No tweaks are called for this night. The flames endure. Air leaks stay tolerable. Your setup suffices. By winter's midpoint, the line between necessity and desire sharpens keenly. Your mind wanders fleetingly to renewal, but snaps back. Conjuring sun too soon only burdens the now. You've mastered holding off that vision. Thaw comes on its schedule. This evening stands alone for the moment. The dugout endures unchanging, fulfilling its role as it has for months. It repels gusts. It tempers the bite. It seeks vigilance, not exertion. That dependability weighs heavier now than in the chaotic start. Academics still puzzle over whether folks grew numb in winter's waning or attained a steady poise. Archives leave it unresolved, many passages blending the two. You sense a similar equilibrium tonight. No thrill, no gloom, just persistence. Darkness will yield, dawn will break, duties will resume. This certainty requires no bolstering anymore. You shut your eyes, inviting rest to claim you once more. Even if it dawns more gradually than in fresher times, your form recalls the routine. Your psyche relies on the shelter nearby. Late winter bears down softly, not with fury, but through sheer length. You face it as you have each prior evening, by hunkering, preserving vigor, and trusting the dugout's tested shelter. Rest descends dense and routine, ushering you past another evening that drags beyond its span, yet edges nearer to spring than it seems. As the season starts to ease, slumber shifts once more. You sense the change before acknowledging it inwardly. Evenings lose their thickness. The dugout retains the chill, yet it doesn't grasp as fiercely as before. A nuance in the atmosphere has altered, faint enough to overlook without focus. You settle in, anticipating the usual burden, but it settles milder. Your exhalations heat the air near your features more swiftly than in recent memory. The ground continues to pull away warmth, but with a gentler pull, like the soil beneath is starting to unwind. The grip of winter hasn't fully released, yet it's loosening its hold. In those final dispatches from the Prairie in late season, one understated note keeps surfacing. Folks mention alterations in their slumber well before noting any harbingers of thaw. Repose grew less burdensome at the outset. Visions in sleep evolved prior to shifts in the landscape. Our forms detect the shift toward renewal long before any almanac marks it. You reposition yourself and sink into place with unexpected ease. The scooped-out mesh still cradles your shape, though its embrace has slackened. Mobility seems possible now if required. The bite of frost or weariness no longer anchors you in place. Such liberty strikes you as strange following months of rigid immobility. Even the shelter adjusts in kind. Dampness evaporates a touch quicker beside the flames. Breezes circulate more freely with a quick door swing. Scents mellow out earlier. The interior doesn't resist the transformation. It yields to it, much as it yielded to the season's freeze. You tune into the darkness and catch faint traces of returning noises. Nothing boisterous, merely whispers. Fresh snow compressing with reduced weight. Gusts easing in their push. In the distance, perhaps the trickle of liquid stirring under frozen layers. Certainty eludes you, nor do you require it. The mere hint conveys the turning point. A subtle pattern emerges in those winter's end accounts. Individuals propping the entrance ajar for additional gulps of air come evening, gauging if the chill would invade with fury or pause. That pause signified advancement. You catch yourself mirroring the gesture, cracking the door, and sensing the influx carry less edge than previously. Slumber unfolds in extended waves. Interruptions dwindle. No more frequent stirrings to reposition covers or stoke the blaze. The heater retains its glow with minimal coaxing. Supplies endure further. At first, this thriftiness seems oddly untrustworthy. You've become habituated to rationing every scrap with precision. Among scholars, debate lingers over this liminal phase. Did it deliver solace or stir fresh doubts? Certain narratives evoke rising optimism buoying moods. Contrasting tales speak of unease over impending deluges and slop. The freeze held predictable rigors. The bloom ushered in unpredictable trials. Documentation captures these sentiments in tandem. For you this evening, the evolution registers mainly in the body. Tension ebbs from sinews more completely. Inhalation expands more readily. Weariness fades. This softening beckons rest over alertness. Night visions lighten once more, shedding their confinement. Earthly havens and enclosures persist in your reveries, yet room expands inside them. Upon rising, specifics linger rather than vague echoes. The shift catches you off guard. You'd adapted to thick, languid slumbers that dissolved without residue. Evenings in the sod house expand now, not from any structural alteration, but from your thoughts ceasing to chafe at its confines. Shadows still saturate the chamber, yet they weigh neutral rather than oppressive. One more note from those closing season diaries. Occupants subtly reordering their palettes, easing outward a fraction as the frost withdrew. Frames reasserted territory yielded in hardship. Ease broadened quietly, unproclaimed. You observed the impulse in yourself, allowing extensions of arms and legs instead of instinctive tucking. The hearth acts altered as well. You prepare it identically, but it ignites swifter, clinging to fervor extendedly. Such quick uptake renders evenings sturdier. Fears dissipate that one oversight might exact prolonged misery. The earthen base retains its cool undertone, but it no longer overwhelms. Heat permeates quilts more profoundly. The terrain appears willing to restore what it once withheld so tenaciously. The soil adheres to the cycle with devotion. Experts remain divided on whether this thaw bred agitation or appeasement. Texts hint at mounting itchiness as activity beckoned anew. Others convey thanks for profounder repose at long last. Responses varied by how the deep cold had battered each home. Yours tilts toward ease over fidget. Departure from the burrow awaits another day. You merely register that it no longer exacts perpetual bargaining. The distinction counts. Beyond, the grassland stays muted and ashen, but no longer barricaded. Powdered borders blur. Heaps subside incrementally. Though unseen, you perceive the stir via murmurs and currents. The territory readies for motion. Within, the hovel bends to the flux without pushback. It cradles heat tenderly. Not with a vice. It sheds humidity promptly. It permits deeper dives into rest without imposing quietude. The enclosure evolves alongside you. For a moment, you recall the tally of evenings endured here, gauging the frost breath by breath. That tally loses its press now. Darkness flows smoother. Duration elongates ahead rather than bearing down. You shut your lids and yield to drowsiness effortlessly. No compulsion to watch the embers so intently. No drive to heed each rustle. The sod dwelling has proven reliable amid the severest trials. It shepherds you now through this milder interlude. Sleep wraps around you like an old blanket left unbuttoned, offering shelter without the old tightness. It's still a guardian, but one that allows more room to move. Your breaths come freely as the darkness shifts toward dawn, unhindered. When consciousness returns, it won't stem from the chill's insistent pull. Instead, it will signal that repose has fulfilled its role. This shift carries weight, though you haven't yet put words to it. For the moment, you slip back into slumber, cradled by a dwelling that has evolved with you from winter's fiercest grip into its slow thaw. Spring hasn't arrived, yet rest senses its approach. You sense the departure from the dugout before committing fully to the idea. The notion comes softly, devoid of pressure, much like spring stirs below the surface, long before breaking through above. Evenings have turned less burdensome. Dawns require no more haggling. What was once a vital refuge now seems whole, its purpose served, not crumbling. You pause in wakefulness briefly, assessing the space. The walls endure unchanged. The roof stays solid. The ground beneath lies cool and steady. No physical alterations mark the spot, but the atmosphere has transformed entirely. The dugout no longer intrudes on your thoughts. It recedes into the ordinary. And that's the true indicator. In later tales of abandoning Earth homes, folks often note the absence of fanfare in the choice. No dramatic pronouncements echoed. Accounts from winter journals and memories reveal that individuals just started bedding down in new spots when weather permitted. The structure didn't demand outright dismissal. It merely awaited release. You rise, observing how fluidly your form complies. No rigid aches calling for forbearance. No frost urging wariness. You could rise and navigate without plotting every motion. This liberty seems hard-won. The dugout has imparted lessons that endure beyond its walls. You perceive heat in fresh ways now. You sense how environments inhale and exhale. You attune to quiet and echoes with a newfound awareness. Such patterns don't evaporate upon exit. They accompany you onward. A subtle thread weaves through many pioneer recollections. Individuals revisited their dugouts post-relocation, not for nights under sod, but to linger in silence. The place retained value even after ceasing to be essential. Affection persisted. Scholars have long debated the depth of sentiment tied to these soil-built havens. Certain narratives speak of gladness in moving on. Others whisper of fond reminiscence. The archives capture these conflicting sentiments, leaving the tension unresolved. Humans proved intricate. Their cold seasons matched that complexity. You rise fully and survey the interior once more, not as a goodbye, but as acknowledgement. The dugout bears traces of your time there. Worn soil, shadowed turf mats molded by months of habitation. No descriptions are required. You grasp that burrowing into the ground was an evasion of the freeze. It was partnership with it. The soil tempered what gales couldn't. Its bulk soaked up what openness amplified. The dugout didn't vanquish the chill. It blunted its edge just enough for endurance. You withdraw, aware that your nights ahead will differ, more buoyant, less vigilant. Yet a fragment of you will forever recall this manner of repose. The burden overhead, the hush, the embrace over mere enclosure. As the tail winds down, pace eases. Your inhales grow calm. Tension melts from your frame. Visions blur gently. Envision reclining anew under soil and drifts. Not out of necessity, but for the solidity it brings. Their flames flicker low and steady. The barriers stay hushed. Beyond, the grasslands pause in seasonal limbo. No urgency bears down. No claims arise. No repairs beckon. Warmth suffices. Security holds. Repose is yours to claim. Allow the dugout to dim softly now. Not vanishing, merely withdrawing like a recollection that requires no focus. Take its wisdom ahead. But shed the load. Slumber deepens further. Ideas wander. Darkness eases its clasp. You've met winter's requirements. Release comes easily. The evening seeks nothing more from you. It merely lingers. You sense yourself descending into quietude, like ground compressing after bearing heavy burdens through endless months. No haste stirs. No tugs intrude. The dugout no longer envelops tightly. It relaxes, freeing you with care, as though aware its duty concludes. Your respiration turns languid and rhythmic, free from tallying heat or vigilance, merely constant, ordinary, effortless. Inhales enter unbidden, depart unnoticed. The form recalls true relaxation, absent defenses. Noises that once held import dissolve utterly. No crackling blaze, no creaking frost, no vigilant ear for shifts. Quietude ceases to demand decoding. It exists plainly, vast and impartial, akin to vast fields post-storm. You envision the overlaying earth lightening incrementally, not yanked away abruptly, but yielding its squeeze bit by bit. Proximity of old now seems remote, not from relocation, but from no longer requiring vigilance. In your recollections, the dugout lingers as a haven of calm stability, not mere toil, a confined area that instilled endurance silently, a refuge demanding focus instead of dread, a time of year that molded you subtly before fading away. Ideas decelerate, drifting apart without linkage. Visions soften along their borders. Your form eases completely into repose, upheld effortlessly without embrace. Right now, no dawn demands readiness. No blaze beckons. No entryway requires sweeping. Just this instant, drawn out in gentle ease, letting slumber sink deeper at its own pace. Should thoughts drift off, permit them to roam softly. If the mind clears, allow it to remain so. No urgent matters press. The open grassland slumbers, the soil slumbers, and so do you, while rest draws you farther from the chill, the burden, and the endless labors of the season. All fades into serene silence with no resistance. Pleasant dreams.